This is WesBlaze Music, the Geocentric Eccentric on Flat Earth Radio, live, FERLive.com.
Linked up here with WesBlaze, on to the next phase.
WesBlaze, keep doing what you do.
Wes, keep up your good game.
Shout out to my boy WesBlaze, keep spitting that fire.
Wes, keep doing what you do.
Thank WesBlaze for the track of Remember.
Hey, Wes, keep it going, man. You're doing good. Good job on that track, WesBlaze. Yeah, I hear you grew up WesBlaze. Music, Wes. Keep doing what you do. You guys are doing big things. WesBlaze, my big brother. Keep doing what you love. You already know what it is. WesBlaze, keep doing what you do. WesBlaze, you make some good WesBlaze, following your dreams, dream big, dream big.
WesBlaze Music.
Well, what's happening, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Flat Earth Radio Live, and you are live for the ride with WesBlaze on the Geocentric Eccentric. And this is episode number 2 of the show, my follow-up to the premiere that aired on January 1st. All glory to the Most High, man. The development, recording, and success of that debut was one of the most rewarding and encouraging experiences I've had the pleasure to be a part of in a long time. And just to listen to it all come together, I'm overwhelmed with joy to know my message might have reached someone in good favor. During that first broadcast on FERLive.com, I was sent a message from one of the show managers saying, "We are currently experiencing our largest audience ever." And at that point, 45 minutes into the first half, when I read that text, I legitimately dropped to my knees in tears of gratitude for that chance to share what I feel like I was made to share with whoever will listen. You know, the message of the good news. And it's a prayer of mine to have a growing opportunity to continue doing so. Today, I'm going to mix up the format and bring on my first guest. His name is Nate Wolf, and he is Fired for Truth on YouTube. You can even find him on Facebook as Nate Wolf, Fired for Truth. And he has a very interesting story with a testimony that I am excited for him to be able to share with you guys that includes a troubling set of circumstances that involved him losing his work opportunity just for pursuing information about biblical cosmology without even sharing it with his congregation. So, Nate, what's happening, man?
Hey. What's going on, brother Nate?
How you doing, man?
I'm pretty well. How about yourself this evening?
I'm doing good, man. I had homemade pizza tonight, so.
Did you? That's funny. I had some pizza earlier, too.
Yeah, usually at our house, Fridays are almost 100% pizza night, so.
Very good, very good.
Especially since my wife has a job now and I don't, so, you know, I figure after working all week, she should be able to come home and not have to cook.
I can dig it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was happy to hear you, to have you hit me up to say you'd like to chat.
Yeah.
I know you're coming here into town to Louisville just tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right?
Yeah, Sunday. Check this out, man. Flat Earther that I met with the last time I dropped my son off in Louisville, right after Thanksgiving. He has a friend that also goes to the same college with him, but she lives in Louisville, so he offered to give him a ride the rest of the way down to Arkansas, which was nice because that's like another 7 hours. So, saved me. I only have to go down about 4.5, 5 hours, drop him off, and then I come back home. So, this friend, we weren't friends at the time. We were Facebook friends, but we really didn't know each other well. And I said, hey, you know, I posted, and he was the only one that could make it. So we had lunch and hit it off real well. And he had been doing some real serious thinking and prayer and had some experiences this last week, and he decided that he wants to be baptized. So when I messaged him the other day, I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to be back in Louisville area, same time, same place. I said, if you want to meet up for lunch on Sunday, you know, let me know. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm happy to do lunch. Plus, he says, I would like for you to baptize me. So I was like, what? You know, I was blown away. So check this out. Yeah, check this out. So that's cool enough, right? But how's this for the providence of God, right? So the place where I dropped my son off to meet this gal, and the same place I'm going to drop him off Sunday, is the parking lot of a church building that has a baptistry. And the friend that's giving my son a ride happens to be the youth minister at this church. So I didn't have to look very far. The same exact parking lot I was going to anyway has a baptistry, have a connection there. They already said, yeah, come on over. You can use our heated baptistry. So
it's amazing how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, you couldn't have just, you couldn't have made that stuff up. That was perfect planning of God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, how it all works together, right? What's the verse in Romans where it says, "For the good of all things"?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's Romans. Is it Romans 8:28? I think.
Yeah, I believe that's it.
All things work together for good.
Yeah, they do, don't they? That's
all according to His purpose. So.
Amen. That's another example of that. Very good.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I've been a follower of some of the stuff that I've seen you in with Robbie, from Celebrate Truth and the interview you guys did. I was just kind of touching up on that, trying to do some of my homework on you and your story. What I can say about wanting to have you as a part of a segment on my show, brother, I just started this, so I'm not super comfortable with what I have to do to conduct an interview. Honestly, I've seen more of your interviews than I've even participated in myself.
Well, I've been at this for only 3.5 months, Wes, so don't sweat it, man.
Okay,
it's been a baptism by fire, but other than that, I'm really pretty new at this myself. So if I can help a new channel, and maybe help with some growth too, man, I'm excited. I mean, that's what everybody's done for me. I was just a guy and had a weird, crazy, frustrating circumstance, and God used it for good. But that was God's choice,
Yeah.
Not my choice. So I'm just feeling thankful that He decided to use me,
Yes, very much so. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, briefly. I don't have maybe as much time as some of these other guys have had on their shows that you've been on, but I know you've gotten your practice in to be able to kind of briefly spell it out. But what I do want to say is, yes, definitely seeing all the buzz that you've gotten surrounding just your recent story. And like you say, it has happened so very recently. But strange, and I know you said crazy and weird what you went through, but it's kind of crazy and weird what we're all going through, seeing how many people are being compelled to create new channels and to spread the message and find their platforms. And that's what I'm being called to do, undeniably, in all of the pieces. Just like we were saying earlier, for the will of God, things fall together naturally like they do. And I see this opportunity, and I know that your pulpit was taken from you, and so it meant a lot to me when somebody recently gave me one. I wanted to sacrifice a big chunk of an episode to give mine to you for a little while, brother.
Sweet. I appreciate it, man. Just tell me how much time you want me to share, and I'll condense it down however much I need to.
Sure. So if you want to take about, I know I've seen you talk. I know you can talk just like you I'm sure you did when you got behind, up in front of the congregation. And I wish I could have been able to see some of that. But so hearing you now, I'd like to hear from, your best explanation of how, first of all, you came to Flat Earth. So I know you were I know you've been married for 26 years. I know that you are a minister, and you've been so for about 14 years. I know you ministered at a church for, was it about 7 years, the last one?
Yeah, well, in total, I've been in ministry since I was 19, but I've been in full-time paid ministry for about 15 years. And this church that fired me, I was there for almost 7.5 years. So that was the big shocker,
Yeah.
Had a good relationship there, and not everybody loved me to death, but I had a good relationship with most people there. My family was well liked, and so it just came as such a huge shock,
Very good. Yes, sir. I can only imagine. I mean, hearing your testimony and some of what you spoke about, I would recommend that anybody watch what you had to say to Robbie on Celebrate Truth in that interview immediately after you had gotten fired. But before you got fired, I remember you saying it was only about a year and a half or so that you had started studying the word concerning the shape of the earth and cosmology. And so what exactly would you say led you to that?
Well, it was, at first it was just kind of chance, but as I reflect now, I'm positive it was the providence of God. I mean, God was using it in His plan. And, He has a sense of humor as well, because I was studying in spring, it was early spring of 2017, so a little over a year and a half ago, and I was studying because a church in Michigan, see, I'm in Ohio, preaching in Ohio, a church in Michigan north of me about an hour invited me to come because they did a Wednesday night summer series of lessons. And so they would have a theme on Wednesday nights for the whole summer, and then they would invite maybe 10 or 12, different speakers for the entire summer on Wednesday nights to have about a 45-minute presentation based on the theme. And they would choose, the theme for you, basically. If you said you could speak, they would give you a date and a time. And I just happened to be selected for an awesome topic. It was on the flood. And they wanted me to share my thoughts about the flood, and so I decided, okay, a lot of times the big argument of the flood, not too many people deny there was a flood, but the big argument is typically, was it a universal flood, meaning all over the world, or was it a localized flood? So I had always believed in a worldwide flood, but I decided, okay, I'm going to present some evidence for why it wasn't just a localized event. Mm-hmm. And so I presented that, but right before I taught it, I had a few weeks or a month and a half or so before I taught it, I had finished studying early for the lesson. So I was like, okay, I got like a month and a half, man. I'm way ahead here. So I decided for kicks to go to YouTube and see if I could watch a few videos on the flood, see if there was any good flood videos, right? Right. And so I watched a few videos, and the two that I watched were pretty good, and then I watched a third one, and it was like so-so. But, so you know how YouTube does. When you click on something, then they usually give you, or start giving you recommendations for something similar. And in the right-hand side there on the YouTube bar, the recommendations, it popped up the Global Lie by Celebrate Truth. Yeah. And probably because, I'm researching the flood. The flood is related to creation, and the earth and all that, the early stuff, the early history of the earth. And so that's probably, why this video popped up. But I really do believe that God wanted me to watch that video. So yeah, maybe it was God recommended. You know what I'm saying?
But you went down that rabbit hole of YouTube videos, huh? Click after click, and next thing you know.
The funny thing is the first Flat Earth video I watched didn't actually have Flat Earth in the title. It said the Global Lie. Right. And that caught my attention because I had done some sermons about Satan and how he deceives the world. Mm-hmm. And so my mind was already kind of prepped, to be receptive and interested in a title such as the Global Lie. And I thought, well, I had some free time. I'm gonna check this out. Well, it was like an hour plus, so it was a good long video. But right away, what really grabbed me was not only were they talking about, science says this, here's what the empirical evidence shows. They immediately started talking scripture, comparing that, what does quote-unquote science say with the Bible. And there was clips of Rob Skida's presentations and different people in there. And honestly, Wes, it was the scripture, the fact that they were using scripture that had a ring of truth. And I'm like, wait a second. Yeah. If there's even a small possibility that these scriptures are true and in context, I need to go back and check these out.
Exactly.
So I made a list of some scriptures, and as soon as I watched the Global Lie video, now I'm seeing in the recommended list there actual Flat Earth videos that say Flat Earth in the title. So I'm like, Flat Earth, like, what does that mean? Because the big idea of the Global Lie wasn't just like, okay, it's flat. I mean, it was like comprehensive biblical cosmology. It's motionless. It's not a globe. That sort of thing. So I'm like, Flat Earth, like, is that like a troll? Is that like a joke? I thought it was a troll, right? Yeah. But I clicked on one of them, and I can't remember which what was the first one? It might have been, I mean, I looked at some Mark Sargent ones, I looked at some ODD ones, so, you know, it's hard to remember. But anyway, so I clicked on one, and they were starting to talk about flat Earth, and they were busting out the same scriptures, and I'm like, what?
Yep.
You know? So I started watching more and more and more, and I didn't just watch the Christians, you know, like I said, I watched some, you know, non-believers, agnostics, whatever to call them. I watched, you know, 3 or 4 different kinds. I probably watched a couple of Eric Dubé ones. Yeah. So, I mean, I dove down the hole pretty good. And over the next several weeks, I was doing a lot of studying.
Yeah.
And it was probably, you know, within just a few weeks, I was becoming pretty convinced. Within a couple months, I was solidly convinced. And so my wife started noticing I was watching a lot of videos. Now, I watch a lot of Netflix and stuff, you know, in my free time anyway. I'm a movie buff. So she probably thought I was sitting over there watching movies, but she could tell I was, you know, really thinking hard because my forehead must have been all wrinkled up or something. So she's like, what are you doing over there? You know, like, what you got going on over there? And I was sitting there like, what am I supposed to tell her? You know, like, oh, it's just better, honey, you know. So I was like, well, I said, I just decided to tell her. And she's like, is that a thing? And I'm like, I think it is. And she's like, really? She's like, well, let me watch, you know. She watched, and she was probably convinced faster than me. I think she was probably on board within a week or so. She was like, oh, yeah, you know.
Very cool.
The Bible says it, man. So, you know, we continued to study, you know, not every day, but consistently off and on for a total of about a year and 5 months. And then my wife texts me one day, and she says, Nate, she says, check this out. And she sent me a link to Take on the World 18 conference. And she's like, this is in Ohio. And I'm like, really? I'm like, how far away? Like 3-4 hours? She's like, no, man. She's like, it's an hour and 15 minutes from our house. I was like, no way, you know. And we had never been to any official truth conferences. And I thought, well, you know, we need a vacation. We need a couple's getaway. And
how long into your studies and like in researching, you know, biblical cosmology and flat Earth, how long into that was this conference taking place?
It was about, if I had to take a guess, it was like maybe a year and say five months.
Right when you were good and settled in the understanding, you know, the realization, right? Yeah.
And now keep in mind, Wes, this whole time I'm still preaching and teaching full time for this church. So now if I wanted to hijack the pulpit and go around the leadership and just start preaching it militantly, I had every opportunity to do that for over a year before I was fired.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an important point. So we go to this conference, you know, and we were just blown away, man. I mean, the atmosphere was great. There was a spirit there that just felt like we were among believers, right? It just had that atmosphere.
Who were some of the more prominent truthers that were there that you were meeting for the first time?
Oh, man, I was impressed because it was in this little tiny town on Lake Erie, on the shores of Lake Erie, called Vermilion, Ohio. And I'd never heard of the Take on the World conference before. I knew a little bit of the folks that put it together, the organizers, Chris and Liz Bailey, because I had seen some stuff on ICTV that they did. Yeah. But I didn't know a single person there. I'd never heard of the conference. And so we were shocked to see these were the headliners, man, like Rob Skiba, Robbie Davidson. I didn't know much about Chad Taylor, but I had heard about his book, you know, Earth, Where Are We According to the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Robbie's. Robbie actually put me on his channel. I don't know if you saw it when me and Nathan Thompson actually went out to Louisville during like a zombie walk that they had going on. Yeah. We went out and somebody approached me to do a random street interview, and the video got out and spread, and Robbie put my video there, my interview, on his channel, and I really appreciated him for that. He's a cool guy. I'm a big fan.
I'm sure I saw that. That rings a bell, man. That rings a bell. So, you know, my surprise was that here was this, at least to me, it was a little-known conference, you know, and it's in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Nice place, but just a tiny little town. And I was like, wow, they got Robbie Davidson there. They got, you know, Rob Skiba. They had a bunch of other people that I had heard of before, but, you know, didn't necessarily know real well. And I knew the Now You See TV, of the Now You See TV people. I know they said John Pounders and David Carrico were going to be speaking, and I'm just like, wow, they got a lot of well-known people here. Rick Hummer. I was like, okay.
I'm a fan of Rick's too.
Yeah, Rick Hummer. I mean, so it was kind of a, at least on the, biblical cosmology, other than like Dean Odell and a few that weren't there, it was kind of a who's who, and so I was like, wow, this little conference has some big names. So I was excited. Well, we were excited because we knew that, hey, most of these guys, we've been watching their videos for over a year, and won't this be cool to meet the person? And, you hear rumors, oh, Rob Skiba's a shill, this guy's a shill, everybody's a shill, right? And I'm not saying there couldn't be a shill, but once we met these guys, we were like, these are real people, and they all have their own testimony, how they got into this, And so it was a real faith-building experience, and when we left the conference, my wife and I, we were like, well, what do we do with this? Because we both felt strongly that even before the conference, we felt like this was going to be an important piece of the puzzle and maybe a turning point. We didn't know what, but we both felt strongly like God needs us to be here, so we better pay attention.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and so we prayed about it, and we were like, okay, let's just pray for like 40 days. Let's just not do a whole lot of action. Let's just pray and try to wait on the Lord. And all of a sudden, we prayed pretty fervently for about 3 weeks, and then I get called into the church short notice, unsuspected, and boom, fired. Within 10 minutes, I was already starting to clean out my office. That's how fast this thing was, And at the time, it was tragic. It was hurtful. I was hurt more than I was angry because of just the way that they went about it. It was just really horrible. But looking back, even only 3.5 months, out, almost 4 months out, I see that God answered our fervent prayers. It wasn't how we thought it should be. I thought, in a few more weeks, I'll wait till our next leadership meeting, and I'll bring my Bible and I'll ask them if they'd be willing to sit down and look at some stuff in Genesis. No, man, that wasn't the plan. There was no open-mindedness, no opportunity. They didn't want to even look at a scripture. They just wanted me gone, man. They thought I was a, wacko and a false teacher.
And you had no interactions with any of these church elders about or regarding these findings of yours prior to this at all?
No, this is crazy because, Wes, I hadn't even taught publicly in the church at all about flat Earth.
Yeah.
I didn't preach about it. I didn't teach about it. I didn't even talk to, there was only one single person who we knew was woke, who actually wasn't really sure about flat Earth, but they were open. They were pretty woke about a lot of other stuff.
I see.
We told them, we were convinced of it and continuing to look into it, but I had never said anything publicly, and so that's the weird thing is that there was some gossip that had started. Somebody found out where we were. They found out about the conference, but they found out what little town we were in, and then of course you Google that town, and boom, what's going to pop up in this little tiny town, the weekend of a big conference. Obviously, that's going to be what's going to pop up. So they started checking some things out, and apparently they freaked out about some of the topics, which I get it, but I didn't expect them to freak out and then not even talk to me about it.
Yeah.
And fire me with no discussion. So they said, well, we did some research, we watched some videos, blah, blah, blah. They never asked me, Nate, what do you actually believe? What's your intention? What's your plan moving forward? They just did not want to even go there. They just wanted me gone yesterday.
That's so troubling. And so I remember I wrote down a quote from one of your interviews that you did where you said something along the lines of, you would have been just as fired, but you would have been able to walk away feeling better knowing that you were treated with some respect and kindness. And I found that to be very, very, profound and just deep, because I find that to be very similar with a lot of the interactions that we have when we're trying to wake other people up, like whether they be acquaintances, somebody we've never met before, or even friends and family, that people that you've known your whole lives, and know that you wouldn't just go around, you know, trying to convince anybody of something so silly and foolish as something untrue that was blatantly so. But when we come to this, we come to them with this information. I often say, you know, flat earth biblical cosmology is a good test of character, because when somebody reacts to their cognitive dissonance and their conditioning that they've, you know, been programmed with, their true colors kind of show when they're presented with having to react, you know, and having to maybe think about something that contradicts with what they already think they believe. And so it's
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It does really show someone's true character, and it's sad to say that. I mean, if people watched all my videos that were interviews, they would see, you know, I wasn't bitter, I wasn't angry, I didn't use names, I just stuck to the facts of what happened, how it went down, how it made me feel. And, you know, most of the time most of that 7+ years, I didn't have bad interactions with them. You know, we had little disagreements and things once in a while, but most of the time, it was good. And so that's why it was such a shock that their true character in adversity was revealed. And it was, you know, a power and control thing. Even if they felt like they were doing what was best, you know, they should have shown me concern. You know, they should have said, Nate, we're concerned, you know, about your beliefs. You're like, what do you believe? I mean, and if I was a false teacher, biblically, they should have shown me my fault. They should have brought scripture and said, well, you know, you're teaching ABC, but here's what the scriptures say, and you're contradicting scripture. They didn't do any of that. And not just as okay, we gotta, you know, we have to stand up against false teaching, but as a brother, they did not show any concern for my spiritual well-being, my soul. You know, if I was in the wrong, they had the responsibility and opportunity to sit down with me as a brother and say, hey, we're concerned, we love you, you know, we want to talk to you. And that just didn't happen because they saw me as simply a hireling. You know, I was hired and I could be fired. And,
expendable, right?
You know, I should have been treated as a brother. After 7+ years, I should have been treated as a brother. And so that was the part that hurt the most. But that's the quote that you mentioned, you know, that's what I felt like. I was like, you know, you guys, they could have been loving and said, Nate, we're sorry, we just need to part ways. You know, we really don't want to discuss it. But even if you didn't want to discuss it, you could have said it in a nice way. You could have said, you know, we're really not here to discuss it, but we don't want you to feel, you know, angry or upset. We love you. We care about your family. You know, we're going to try to, you know, make a transition as good as it can be. But it was none of that, man. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to discuss anything. Oh my goodness!
Isn't that crazy? And it's so much of a kind of a testament of the times we're living in that even the elect will be deceived, right? And I will have to give you your accolades and nothing but respect, sir, because every bit of interview and responses and public any kind of, you know, claims that you've made, you've handled yourself with nothing but grace and dignity and respect, and I really appreciate that about you. It really shows to your character. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, absolutely.
The funny thing is, Wes, is I was accused of slandering the quote-unquote elder's good name, and I was accused by one of their family members, and I said, now, time out. I said, let's look at the definition of slander. Slander is when you use someone's name publicly, and you say something to damage them, you know, or something that's untrue about them, and you say it publicly. I said, I never used the name of the church that I was with. I never used even a first name of any of the elders that fired me, you know, let alone their last name. I never even said a name.
Right.
I just said the leadership at the church. And I said slander is when you're saying something false. I said everything I shared in the interview was exactly how it went down. So, and then you know, the elders turned around and went to area churches in the Toledo area and basically slandered me. They used my name and said that I was a false teacher. And so, you know, they really hamstrung me and my family from being able to go other places for fellowship. So it's interesting. It's interesting how someone accuses you of something you didn't do, and then they're actually the ones doing it, but they're not admitting it.
Yes, sir. That's sort of hypocritical, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie to you. I appreciate your compliments. I'm not going to lie to you. There were some times when I was upset and, just wanted to say and do a lot, but I was like, you know what? People are watching. I have to watch my example. Even if they're not handling themselves in a biblical way, I need to do everything I can to try to, share the truth, but be as graceful as I can, and not make this look like I'm bitter and I'm just wanting to attack them. No, I just wanted the truth to come out, not just about flat Earth, but I felt like this is a problem in a lot of churches. This sort of thing could happen in any church in America, because so many churches in America run the church like a business. The elders are like a board of directors rather than shepherds, And so I wanted to expose it to also highlight a problem in church leadership.
Yes.
And even though it was a bad example, I was hoping that other leaders would listen and watch and say, if we ever have to do something difficult like that, that's not the way we should handle it.
Amen. Yes, sir. Yeah, sometimes the story we have to share with people is an example for others to learn from, to see what we could have done better or what other people could have done better. And you have, from everything I've seen, sir, you've handled yourself well. But so now that you've experienced all that, and I know certainly that wasn't the first time you've been humbled before the Lord, and I know it was one of those kind of prayers, like you say, you were praying fervently, and now all of a sudden the answer that you least expected was given to you, but you can't help but deny you prayed for something to happen or some sort of sign.
Yeah.
And here it comes, right?
For God to show us, man, like, if you want us to do something relating to this, if you want me to teach, if you want me to share, we just want to do whatever you want to do. And so, you're right, he answered that prayer. I had kind of thought, well, maybe he's going to let me, help this church become a flat earth church, but no, that wasn't the plan.
Mysterious ways, definitely. So I know that I remember seeing something about you having a goal of putting together a new ministry, or what are your plans for the near future and midterm, long-term goals for where you want to take this next on your journey?
Yeah, good question. So right away I had hundreds of people suggesting to me, Nate, are you going to start a church? Nate, are you going to start a church? And I'm not saying anything bad against those who have. I just felt like, you know what, I'm not feeling that right off the bat. Like, I don't feel like God's saying, okay, this church kicked you out, go start your own church. Like, I said, if that's what the Lord leads me to do, then I'll be obedient to that. But what I felt like was this. Basically, God was giving me a new ministry using my skills and experiences that I've had over 20 plus years of doing volunteer and, full-time paid work. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but I figured a lot of it was going to have to do with, teaching and sharing. And so, honestly, Wes, I feel like he has already given me a new ministry. If you look at all the stuff I'm doing, I've done some biblical cosmology videos, but now I've started to upload almost every week more of like a sermon type, just a biblical sermon, not necessarily flat earth, because so many people were telling me, I don't have a local fellowship. I got kicked out of my church, or I just don't feel good about sitting in the sermon because the preacher doesn't teach the true biblical creation, or a lot of other things that he should be teaching that are in the Bible. And so they said, could you encourage us by doing some lessons? So I almost kind of feel like, in a sense, between my live streams and, my sermons and things like that, which I do those as a live. I don't use the chat feature with the sermons because I just want to focus on teaching and preaching and letting people listen. But many people have told me that this feels like a fellowship, and so it's meeting some type of a need, even though it's not with four walls, I feel like God has given me a ministry that is an online ministry on one hand, and then I've been doing other meetups, local meetups, traveling for meetups, conferences, meeting with individuals, if I'm able to do so. And so almost every single day, Wes, I'm doing ministry with people who contact me, you know, people from the truth community, asking for prayers, seeking godly counsel, you know, sharing their testimony with me about what happened. So it's really cool. Now, it's only been 3 months, right? So a lot has happened starting in January, because as you may have heard, Robbie Davidson it now has his own Celebrate Truth radio show, and he asked me to be his co-host. So as of last Saturday, I started co-hosting this weekly radio show.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you, man. I was floored when he asked me. I'm like, really? You gonna choose me? He's like, well, yeah, you're an obvious choice. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take it, man.
You didn't have any indication that he would have chosen you?
Well, I mean, he told me 2 weeks ahead before the show. He told me, but I was like, I didn't know for sure. I mean, I had been doing some interim shows with him and Zen Garcia, but I thought Zen was the one that had invited me in to kind of help Phil. And I guess that was all Robbie needed to see, as well as what he also, you know, knew from getting to know me close the last few months. So he was like, no, man. He's like, we work well together. You're an obvious choice. I want somebody that is, you know, better trained in the scriptures than even myself to be my co-host.
Very good.
So I really see that as another large platform that I can help share truth on and share the gospel. And then also, I'm not sure if you saw my announcement, but Canon Quest, Michael Solomon and his wife Steele, they do these Bible trading cards that are illustrated beautifully based on scripture. They have activity books along the same lines, and they're expanding that. And they called me the other day and were like, Nate, we want you to come on board with us and be a Bible researcher for all of our new series of cards and activity books and things that are coming out.
Wow.
And I was like, that's awesome. I said, I would so want to be part of that, because I don't know if you've seen their stuff. You should go to canonquest.com, CANON quest.com. Check it out, but it's amazing. The illustrations are beautiful, and the best thing about it is they're not just, you know, they're not like cartoony like a lot of the mainstream, you know, Christian stuff that's out there.
No.
They're breathtaking, and the best part about it though is that they want their illustrations not to just be something that's eye-catching for kids, but they want the kids to learn what the Bible actually says. And so they do research before they do their illustration. And so they've asked me to come on board, and you know, I'm going to be doing work on that every week. So, you know, God may have some other future things in store, but right now I'm almost busy full-time doing all of these different things. And so I'm just trying to take it one day at a time. I mean, in January with the radio show, and then starting to do this Bible research, in addition to everything else I'm doing, I'm just adding that to everything I was already doing. I'm still teaching online. I'm still doing live streams weekly. I'm still going to conferences. And the best thing about all these meetups and conferences for me is not just the awesome speakers and the learning, but I meet people everywhere I go who are my Facebook friends, or, you know, supporters on Patreon or YouTube subscribers, and it is so cool to meet them in person, man.
And the reward from this work, although it doesn't always, you know, pay the bills consistently, the reward can be so much more fulfilling than a green paper coupon, right?
Yeah, and the Lord is providing. I mean, I've been fired for 3.5, almost 4 months, and we haven't had a bill that has not gone unpaid. So
praise His name.
I feel like, you know, the Lord is going to provide. You know, seek first the kingdom, His kingdom, and, you know, the kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So that's what we're trying to do. But to answer your question, I believe that this is my new ministry, and it's just very different from what I did before as far as location. You know, it's not in between four walls, but it's utilizing all the skills and experience and the training that I had before. It's just doing it in different venues.
And honestly,
yeah, Yeah, go ahead.
Another unexpected answer to prayer, right?
Yeah.
And so my sentiments exactly, because I would say that I had felt a calling for quite some time. I've always felt a calling to be a leader, even though I wanted to argue with it personally. I was told that I was a sort of leader. And so whereas in recent times when I've delved deeper into Bible study and uncovering so many truths, biblical truths especially, I felt a calling to want to gather a congregation of some sort. And it just felt so awkward to imagine that I set up a building, rented out a space to where I tried to invite strangers and people that I had no connection to, but to still try to make it work. I struggled with the concept of how I could do that with limited resources. But then I realized I have been being gifted and blessed with platforms and opportunities of all sorts, and the following is there when I focus the message on where it's supposed to be, and that is the message of the good news, and you're doing the same.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if somebody is called to that, I say great. If that's your calling, follow it. In fact, I had a guy just north of me in Michigan. The first week I was fired, he told me, he's like, I can take early retirement, like a buyout from my company right now. And he's like, if you decide to start a church building somewhere, a church, he's like, I'll put up $15,000 to help you start it. So it wasn't that I didn't have lack of funding. I mean, that was amazing for someone to offer, but it just didn't feel like I just wasn't led to that. I felt like, no, it's too early to make a decision like that. I need to just try to take it one day at a time and see where God takes this. And honestly, if I was trying to minister to a congregation again, at a building and everything I'm doing now, I mean, my family would never see me. So I don't want to lose my family, in the process of winning others. So
I can understand that completely. Yeah. Well, hey, Nate, so what's one of your favorite truther songs, would you say? Like out of the Flat Earth community, that's music that's been put out, right?
Dude, there's so many, but let me see if I can find. There was one that was just released today that was really cool. Amber Plaster, she did Geocentric and some of these other ones.
I'm a good friend and big fan of Amber, yes, sir.
Okay. There was one that's called Dear Babylon, and it was on the Lifting the Veil CD, but she came out with an official video on YouTube today, and I really think that's like maybe my new favorite song. But Flat Earth Man, he's got a bunch of great songs.
Which one's your favorite?
Yeah, I don't know if I could pick one of his.
Oh, come on. I know you might not know the name of it, but give us a little sample.
Well, I Don't Believe in Gravity, that's a great song.
Yes, it is.
That's probably one of my favorites. I did get a CD.
You did?
Out at FEIC 18, yeah.
Did you get Amber Plaster's CD, Lifting the Veil?
I didn't. I was going to buy it I'd never heard of her before, but at Take on the World, we really weren't connected to people. We were just watching some videos and studying the Bible. So we weren't connected into the community. We didn't know people personally.
Right.
At the time, to be honest with you, I bought a couple of books that I wanted to get. I've been wanting to get for a while, and some of the authors were there. And I had a choice between buying, this other book I've been wanting or buying like some CDs. And I just decided, well, I can always go online and get the stuff later. So, yeah. But now that I've heard some of Amber's stuff and this new one I'm really enjoying, I probably will go and purchase one of her CDs. I understand you do some music too.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah, I just started recently, and so the last song that I actually just finished about a week or two ago now was with Amber Plaster's husband. He goes by Sebastian Calico, and his name is Anthony Stover. They have several tracks on that new album together. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ghost. They did a Ghostbusters remake, kind of a cover, and it was called Globebusters, and it was for the Globebusters guys, the channel. And they did a song together. Yeah, Anthony was the rapper on the.
Did they do the music for that?
Yeah, that was them. That was Amber singing, and Anthony was the, her husband was the deeper voice rapper on there. And so I got to do a song with him. And so, yes, I highly recommend that whole album, that whole new Lifting the Veil by Amber. I actually played Dear Babylon on the last show, my premiere debut show that I did. But because that's one of your new favorites, and it's news to me that she just finished the new music video that she did. I knew they were working on it.
She just posted the link on Facebook today. I was like, oh, cool, I got to check this out.
I'm excited. I'm like a school kid right now. I want to hear it so bad. I want to see it because I've heard the song so many times. I've listened to that album in regular rotation, and it's a dream come true to know that I'm going to get to work with Amber pretty soon. We're going to do a song probably with her husband as well, and I look forward to that. So I'm going to play real quick. We're going to take a quick music break, and if you have some more time, I'd love to chat with you a little bit longer.
Yep, I got a little more time, so.
Cool beans. Well, this is Amber Plaster's Dear Babylon, her second single off of Lifting the Veil, and then we're going to play Flat Earth Man, Don't Believe in Gravity. You're now listening to the Geocentric Eccentric with WesBlaze Music. We'll be right back.
Dizzied up, left me in a baffled trance, singing your song for too long. Been tuning that radio wrong. The new melody is static free, and now it's a light to my feet. Dear Babylon, you told me I could fly, then left me emptier than the high at the end of the line. But I'm done with the high and dry. It was a wrong race in the wrong time, when winning was already mine. Throwing in the towel, you were just on the prowl, but I got a lover waiting on me. I'm done with Rome, I'm headed home. Adios, goodbye,
This is a Flat Earth News Brief brought to you by FENewsNet.com. When most people think about a bright star in outer space, they think of a hot plasma Flat Earth News Brief brought to you by FENewsNet.com. It would be inconceivable for them to believe that a star like this could ever create water. But since stars are linked to the creation of life as we know it, wouldn't it make sense that both water and light come from the stars? Researchers at Herschel Space Observatory of the European Space Agency, when most people think about a bright star in outer space, they found a protostar. They think of a hot plasma filled sphere like our sun. It would be inconceivable for them to believe that a star like this could ever create water. But since stars are linked to the creation of life as we know it, wouldn't it make sense that both water and light come from the stars? Researchers at Herschel Space Observatory of the European Space Agency wanted to look deeper into this. They found a protostar in the southern constellation known as Perseus. It is believed that this protostar is only 100,000 years old or less, so it is very young for a star. Surrounding the protostar is a huge cloud of dust and gas, which is responsible for creating it. The observatory used an infrared instrument to detect the chemical elements of these clouds. They discovered that the clouds were made from oxygen atoms and hydrogen atoms. If you remember high school science class, then you will know that oxygen and hydrogen are the two chemical elements that make up water. And you can't have water without these two elements. So therefore, one can only conclude that the protostar must be producing water if oxygen and hydrogen are present. And this prompted the researchers to study those atoms and see which path they take. Sure enough, it was discovered that the protostar forms water. How is this possible? Aren't stars supposed to be like 180,000 degrees Celsius? According to the theory, protostars have a north pole and south pole just like planets. These are the coldest areas of the protostar, which are about 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. While this may seem hot to us, it is actually cold for a star. It is these low temperatures that allow protostars to rapidly shoot water droplets like a jet from their pole regions. But as the droplets reach space, the extremely hot gas cloud surrounding the protostar turns the water into gas. The gas keeps moving until it eventually gets far enough away from the cloud to where the temperature is cold again. Then the gas reverses itself and turns back into water. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas and then turns into water again. All this water continues to fill up outer space and make it a bigger ocean of water. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. NASA might admit water molecules exist in space, but they won't admit that oceans of water exist there and that our entire flat plane is surrounded by it. If someone could just make a homemade rocket and travel past the exosphere, then they could discover this for themselves and a whole lot more. For more Flat Earth News Briefs, log on to FENewsNet.com, and I'm your host, Rick Lotek. Hey there, this is Flat Earth Radio Live, station production manager Rick Lotek. And I'm here to tell you about Flat Earth News Talk with Wes Stace. Only we've got him, only Flat Earth Radio Live. Join Wes Stace and Flat Earth News Talk Saturday and Sunday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ending at 4, and then starting again at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and ending at 8 o'clock. Wes Stace with Flat Earth News Talk. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live, The Ferret. You can catch us at FERLive.com. Flat Earth Radio Live. Flat Earth Expo, Aotearoa, New Zealand, hosted in Auckland, April 27th and 28th, 2019. A jam-packed 2-day, 3-part event to showcase Flat Earth and related topics, such as the Antarctic Circle and lands beyond, NASA, scientism, religion exposed, the Matrix control, vaccinations, chemtrails, political globalism and the NWO, fake news and false education, astronomy untouched, weather modification, historical hoaxes, financial systems, what are UFOs and aliens, biblical cosmology, and much more. The 3 parts include Broaden Your Horizon, a VIP Flat Earthers dinner, and a Unity conference. For tickets and contact information, phone 021-028-93402 or email admin@fenzexpo.co.nz. Or you can write them at their address at P.O. Box 51010, Pakuranga, Auckland, New Zealand 2010. Or you can log on to their website at www.fenzexpo.co.nz. The 2019 Flat Earth New Zealand Expo, sponsored by FENZ Trust and FERLive.com. QE 2019 is coming to Southern California, February 22nd and February 23rd, 2019. Speakers will be presenting on the hottest topics of the day. 9/11, was it an inside job? The moon landing, did we really go? Scientism, has science become another religion? CBD, what is Big Pharma hiding from us? Vaccines, are they safe or are they harming our children? And no Question Everything conference would be complete without the hottest topic on the internet today, what is the true shape of the Earth? The 2019 Question Everything conference is shaping up to be like no other conference of its kind. This will be the event that people will be talking about for years to come. So get your tickets for the event and the VIP luncheon right now at QE2019.com. Southern California, February 22nd and 23rd, 2019. For additional information, go to QE2019.com. QE2019.com. And if you use promo code FEMG, you'll receive 25% off your ticket price right now. Sponsored by QE2019 and FERLive.com. www.ferlive.com. Flat Earth Radio. Flat Earth Radio that makes us see.
You may not find us on your TV because, in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by. Brought to you by RADI.
Flat Earth Radio is a production of Flat Earth Media Group.
Asking these questions that no one ever asked before because we didn't even think about this. I think it's like God unlifting the veil, you know? He's starting to show people, look, you want to believe this? It's a lie. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail. It's like, yeah, the biggest problem is that we're not able to eliminate questions, so therefore we can't assimilate, and, you know, we're a constant. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail.
Join your host, Shelley Lewis, every Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 7 o'clock Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis.
Down the Rabbit Hole with host Shelley Lewis. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live. The Ferret.
Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio. 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 Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio.
this is Javi Firestein. You're listening to Flat Earth Radio Live. Are they kidding me? They really think the Earth is flat? Whatever, I'm getting paid.
This is Dr. Emmett Brown. You're listening to Flat Earth Radio Live. Marty!
Buenos días, Pedro. ¿Quieres que te corte el pelo?
En la frontera de los Estados Unidos.
Oh, hey, man, what's happening? This is Man. And all of my friends, we be listening to FERLive.com, the ferry. Hey, man, what you doing, man? Get out of there. Oh.
Wow, man. You guys are really getting stoned.
Remember when I learned in school about gravity? It was so cool. I had a teacher that knew it all. She taught me how water could stick to a ball, how buildings stick to the underside of a ball that spins like a carousel ride. Man, it all sounded crazy to me, but I love learning about gravity. I couldn't wait to tell my dad about the amazing day that I had. He picked me up, I was bursting with pride. He opened up the door and I jumped inside. He smiled at me and said, "How was your day?" I said, "Dad, I was blown away. I learned about this magical thing, but it's kinda got my head in the spin. I learned about this Newton guy. When an apple fell on his head, he surmised that there must be a force that's pulling it down, and everything's being sucked to the ground. A force that sticks us all to this ball, the people, the buildings, the oceans and all. So it was written in history, Newton had discovered gravity." Well, he just looked at me and said, "Don't believe in gravity. Don't believe in fantasy. Don't believe, 'cause the theory's all it is. It's never been proven, but they teach it to the kids." Well, my dad felt a little bit sad for me when I mentioned that word gravity. He said, "Have a little independent thought. Question what you've just been taught. I mean, how the hell could a ball that spins make a force so strong that sucks everything in? Yet birds and insects fly unaffected. Gravity must be so selective. Think about it logically, 'cause that don't make no sense to me. You gotta question all those preachers preach, question all those teachers teach. You see, gravity is just a bunch of bull. That Newton guy's just a lying fool. These guys like Newton shouldn't be trusted. Their free Masonic lies have been busted. In fact, my boy, it's density, and that's why things fall down, you see. An object always falls to the ground if it's heavier than the air that surrounds. If it's lighter than air, then it'll rise. It'll keep on floating up to the skies. That's what's known as buoyancy, and that makes more sense than gravity. So let me tell you one more time, boy. Don't believe in gravity. Don't believe in fantasy. Don't believe, 'cause the theory's all it is. It's never been proven, but they teach it to the kids. He said, "I'm sorry, son, for bursting your bubble, but that kind kind of thinking can get you in trouble. These theories they try to put in your head, it's all just pseudoscience, he said. They'll have you believing in all kinds of crap. That gravity nonsense belongs in the trash. Believe me when I say to you, there ain't no gravity, and that's the truth. Well, my daddy made me think that day. He made me think in a different way. I did some thinking for myself. I put that theory back on the shelf. That gravity crap is indoctrination, not truthful, trusted information. People need to wake up and see there ain't no such thing as gravity. You let me hear you sing it one more time now. Don't believe in gravity. Don't believe in fantasy. Don't believe, 'cause a theory's all it is. It's never been proven, but they teach it to the kids. One more time now. Don't believe in gravity. Don't believe in fantasy. Don't believe, 'cause a theory's all it is.
Believe in Gravity. That's Alex Michael. He's a cool cat. That was one of Pastor Nate Wolf's favorite truther songs, and I'm back with him from the break. Glad to have you on, brother. What's some topics that you feel like are worthy of discussing in recent events amongst, I know you're now an integrated part of the online social media, specifically Facebook, truther community, the Flat Earth community, and a growing body of Christ that's represented on Facebook. So is there anything in that community that you're noticing is kind of a controversial topic or something in current events that you find interesting?
Well, I'm probably not as savvy as some, even though I am very connected to the community. Obviously, my interests are, of course, the biblical stuff, and the cosmology. If it's not too, what's the word? If it doesn't get, people fussed up, of course, but there's a big, controversy in some circles with, Torah versus non-Torah. And I'll just tell you, I'm studying all these things out for myself. I'm trying to be, a Berean. And, as you know, for a couple of weeks, there was some dust up over that on social media. And things have calmed down quite a bit. Yeah. So I would definitely say, that's going to be a continued conversation, and you're going to have people on all different sides. Mm-hmm. But I tried not so much to stay neutral. I've always been honest about, how I feel. But really, honestly, it's going to take me some time to study these things out for myself because, other people have done, investigations and good videos on both sides, and I've watched some of those, but I know that my responsibility is to the Lord first and foremost. I have to study to show myself approved. Amen. And not just, watch enough videos and someone else did that study, and so now I should just pick a side. Right. So I will always go with what I believe the Bible teaches, and so I'm just in prayer about that. So that's obviously a big subject within the truth community. And then, of course, you have other things that come up. Social media stuff is so fickle. Something will be on the social media, it'll be blowing up for a few days, maybe a week, and then the next week, people almost forget about it. Like the Logan Paul thing, there was a lot of strong feelings, but...
Were you there at that conference?
Yeah, I was in Denver, yeah.
You were, and then you were also at the Skyfall conference, correct?
Yeah, man, I've been to a lot of conferences.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that's at least two opportunities that I had directly, because Nathan Thompson was staying here with me in Kentucky, working with me, and I didn't have my affairs in order to be able to go to either of those. It was right during the time of my little brother's wedding, and I missed both of those when I could have had the chance to meet you in person then, but that's all right.
I'm going to get a chance to go to California, but I just purchased a plane ticket, so I will be at QE19.
Question everything. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but because I was just waiting to see if the Lord would provide some funds, because I promised my wife, I said, I'm not going to buy a bunch of tickets, and go to Southern California if I can't help my family pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? And the Lord provided. So
did He? Fantastic. It's good to hear. Praise His name. So it's so interesting, and I find it so curious that you brought up a topic that I had in mind exactly when I was mentioning what controversial or topics, because on my last show, my first show here, that I had a whole segment dedicated to covering that, and from my findings, because like you say, it was a very interesting debate to me, and people were getting very heated up, much like when a lot of us first found God through studying biblical cosmology at first. And I wanted to say earlier how interesting it is also that you had been a Christian and a minister for much of your life and found the biblical cosmology after the fact, whereas for me and a lot of others I know, I started off as doubtful, a believer for most days, but somewhat of a non-believer in many ways, and then in the sense that finding biblical cosmology woke me up to the validity of the Bible and the truth of Christ, and that was a stepping stone to my salvation.
I just I thought, well, I'll mention it just because it had been something that up until a few weeks ago was really starting to get fired up, and now it's died down a bit.
Yes.
But I know a lot of people are wondering, well, where's Nate at this? And some people are like, well, why aren't you posting your view? And it was like, well, I was sharing honestly where I was at. I'm like, I'm new to most of this stuff. I mean, I didn't even know much about a Torah community until I went to take on the world. So I was like, you're going to have to give me some time, because I'm not going to pick a belief just because people want me to, or I'm feeling pressure from, one side or the other. I was like, I need to study this out for myself and come to a conclusion that I believe has been prayerful. And the thing is that even if I decided this or that, as far as what you and others have heard of me, that my style is not to be confrontational. Now, there's a time and a place to, speak the truth and do it boldly, and I'm not against that. I've done that many, many times.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're going to win someone over to an important side, opinion, truth, you have to be very careful how you do that, because there's a fine line between speaking the truth, and doing it in love. And it is loving to tell people the truth, but sometimes people say truth in an unloving way. And when you start to see name calling, calling people terrorists and calling people heretics, and that was the part that I thought, I'm not going to dive into this and be part of a name-calling, scenario.
Very good.
Anyway, hopefully people will be patient with me and pray for me. I'm soliciting prayers to that end, is that a lot of stuff is new for me, and I'm having to study new topics. I'm having to restudy things I've always believed and taught, because I want to check myself. I want to check my doctrine,
Yeah, and that's a very honest and wise answer, kind of a look before you leap kind of deal, whereas you can honestly say you're humble enough to admit, look, I don't know the specifics well enough to really formulate a solid opinion that I feel I can back on Scripture, and that's a valuable, honorable characteristic that you portray, that you want to, do your due diligence, and like you say, study to show thyself approved. You really nailed it on the head with that. And so I'd like to share with you from my findings that it really summarized the whole gist of it the best for me when I realized that in the end, in Revelation, that dragon is wroth with the remnant of her seed. It says the remnant of the body of Christ that keep his commandments. And so what's important to understand, I feel like, for the community that's kind of bickering back and forth on this topic of Torah, and like you say, Torah terrorists, that they're labeling people. I said in my last show that I thought that was kind of a dangerous generalization to make, to lump everybody that follows anything from the Torah together, because what I find most interesting is that I guess a lot of people surely they know that the Torah is just the first 5 books of the Bible. you know. And then oftentimes it can also be placed onto old Jewish law, and I can understand where that misinterpretation and kind of misunderstanding, confusion lies. But whereas it's clear to me that the Mosaic law, you know, the Talmud, the law of the land at that time was done away with, whereas when God wrote with, you know, a lot of people say that God didn't write the Bible, man did. Well, they're forgetting the one part that God himself wrote with his own finger the 10 Commandments on the tablets, right? And then it said that when Christ came, he tells everybody, you know, they're asking him, what's important about the commandments? Which commandments are so important? He says basically all the commandments hang on this: love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and love thy neighbor. And so what I found most interesting was that when you really break down the 10 Commandments, the first 4 are really great examples of how to love God. It's like he details it out for us. And then the last 6 show us how to love our neighbor very well, actually. And then so to notice that if you're a true believer in the Word and in Christ, you know that Christ is God, manifest in the flesh. Yeah. And so we know God doesn't change his mind also from other scriptures. So for him to have written in stone with his own finger 10 commandments, I don't think that was something that he was saying, you know what, I'm doing away with those, and these 2 now are the only thing you got to worry about. I think he was trying to simplify it for the people and saying, just, here it is in a nutshell. Love God, love your neighbors. And that the 10 Commandments expound upon that. Yeah.
And I agree with you, you know. Now, if someone is a Torah terrorist, you know, if they're just really being harsh on people and being legalistic and whatever else, you know, hey, man, I say, you know, go for it. You know, some people need to be rebuked. But I agree with you. The thing that bothered me was that I have, because of Take on the World and other things, you know, I have a lot of Facebook friends and a lot of friends now that, you know, are Torah observant or however you want to call that. And so most of the people that I know are loving, you know, kind people. They believe that Jesus Christ is their Savior, and they're not saved by keeping, you know, a set of laws or rules, but they keep it for obedience, they keep it for righteousness. And so, you know, I think the vast majority of the Torah folks, just going by, I can only say what I've experienced, is that most of them are very, you know, kind, they love the Father, and so my thing is to say, you know, we've got to examine each person on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, if somebody comes out and says it's not the blood of Jesus that saves us, then, yeah, all bets are off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be the first one to call that out and say no. But, you know, to just label, you know, to paint everyone with a broad brush is not okay, you know, and to paint all churches, because some people are really down on the modern church and they're like, hey, you know, you got to get out of Babylon, you got to do this. You know, there's some truth to that. I'm certainly not going to deny that. I've seen it firsthand. You know, I've experienced it. However, there are good people in bad churches, and there are good churches. You know, you have to look at every congregation on a case-by-case. You can't just say, oh, all churches are bad now, you know, flush them all down the toilet.
Absolutely.
You know, that's not fair either, you know what I'm saying?
Of course. Yeah.
All pastors are this, that, and the other. They're all money-grabbing.
That we know that's not the case, right? But in the case that these people that are labeling a group as Torah terrorists for whatever reason, I'm not even sure who they're talking about, right? So I'm not going to mention any names. But when they say Torah terrorists, if in fact they are just referring to people that adhere to something or anything from the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, I also want to turn around and say, so if you're labeling anybody that enforces or supports anything that's in the Torah as something negative, then we have to also acknowledge that the account of creation was in the Torah. We have to acknowledge that so many other things, prophecy of Christ to come was in the Torah. And so to throw it all away is just kind of silly, and I don't like it that a lot of people are kind of treating it like that. But I love this kind of back and forth to be able to try to get to the bottom of it, and both of us can admit that we're learning. I'm open to evidence because, you know, I can't say that I know this is what God meant, but, you know, but I can definitely say I want to know, and I'd like it if we can all do so together in fellowship and with love in our hearts, for sure.
And, you know, I mean, I think I would kind of be a hypocrite if I'm saying, you know, well, I'm open to truth and I recognize that I had some things wrong and I need to restudy some things, but then not be willing to do a diligent study on the subject. You know, I mean, that would be kind of disingenuous for me to just say, no, I don't need to spend the time in that. I'm just going to make a judgment right now. And now if other people have studied it out, you know, and they're very convinced that it's not biblical, then I'm not getting after those kind of folks. I'm just saying, I hope people understand my situation is that much of this is all new to me, and I need to take the time. I don't think this is a light subject. I don't think it's something that you just kind of, oh, I got a long weekend, you know, let me binge some YouTube videos, or, you know, let me check a few scriptures out. For me, I know that how I have best been brought to truth is by a careful, diligent, prayerful study, and then when you know the truth, then you know it, and then you can march out afterwards. So yeah. Anyway,
I agree.
I didn't want to bring up, you know, a quote-unquote controversial topic. I just want
I kind of brought it up. I was curious.
You know, I just want to be real honest with you and say, you know, that's been one of the big things that I've learned about.
It has, isn't it? And I learned a lot, too. I have learned, I think it's happening for a reason, because it's kind of teaching and it's inspiring so many people that thought, okay, I've learned this and this and this, and I'm starting to tighten my walk with Christ. It's inspiring so many people to try to get to the bottom of what that means. And I think you really nailed it, Nate, when you said that we're not saved by anything other than the blood of Christ, that by grace alone we are saved. And a lot of people use that in defense of being able to say somebody is a Torah terrorist, because they imagine that somebody that follows the Torah or is a Torah abider thinks that, you know, they imagine a Torah person thinks that they are only saved by obedience. And I'm here to say that I think the 10 Commandments that are in the Torah are still relevant to us, but I don't think that is what saves us, because I know that only by His grace we wouldn't have the option to be saved if it weren't for Him and His grace for us. But because we love Him, we obey.
For a better covenant, you know, but the question, like you said, is does that mean everything else is obsolete? And that's the part that I'm thinking, you know, this is this is something I really need to check into.
It is. And does it have to be all or nothing? Does it have to be that everything else is obsolete? I don't think that's the case. I think there's some things that He makes clear are no longer applicable, and that there's others that aren't. But like you say, and like I say, that you know, obedience isn't necessarily have to be labeled as legalism, and obedience isn't what we do to get saved. It's what we do because we're saved. And all too often, even people that, you know, don't think necessarily the 10 Commandments apply to us in this modern time, for whatever reason, I think it also comes as no surprise that if they are true followers of Christ, then they're already obeying the 10 Commandments without realizing that's something that's necessary, maybe. You know what I mean?
They should be doing those things and loving God and loving their neighbor.
And that's what's beautiful about it. They're written on our heart.
We have to be cautious with new information, you know, because like I said, the speed of the internet and social media is so fast. You know, I'll just tell on myself a little bit. How's that?
Okay, go ahead.
The other day, I mirrored a video from YouTube, and I didn't realize that it was kind of it was an interview that somebody posted from a scientist, and a quote-unquote scientist. They don't have a degree, but anyway, it was a little chopped up, and I didn't realize it was. I didn't realize that they had edited from an original video, and I don't think I misrepresented anything by posting the video, but I had somebody who just, like, flipped out.
They lost it.
On my Facebook, and we're kind of like upset, and we're calling me out, like, oh, you're supposed to have, you know, you're a minister, and you got to watch your example, and how could you post their opinion? You know, so I guess I have to agree with you. I mean, I have people are looking to someone like myself, you know, more so necessarily than just you know, this was kind of a chopped up, edited version. You should check out the full. You know, but like you said, there was a way to say that, but, you know, I make one potential mistake, and it was kind of like, well, I'm done with you. Like, you're supposed to be perfect, and I'm done with you. I'm like, whoa, who said that? You know, hold the phone, you know.
Much like there's a polite way to debate, much like there's a polite way to fire somebody, and a polite way to live life, right?
Yeah, you know, yeah, you're onto it. You're onto it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would just say, you know, we do have to be cautious and just, you know, not be timid, but just check our sources and just, you know, sometimes on social media people post things like, well, this is really funny, you know, but it's dropping 5 F-bombs, you know, in the meme. It's kind of like, you know, just think for 5 seconds and not just with your brain. Think with a mind for scripture and example, you know, and say, okay, this is pretty funny and I could post this, but, you know, so if people would just pause for a few seconds and consider what they're posting, you know, whatever content it is, even if it's just an Instagram photo or something like that, I think that's important for all truthers, whether they're believers or not, but especially for those who are professed believers, because I see a lot of stuff on Christians' pages which is not appropriate for a Christian to be posting. And you know, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I'm just saying, you know, it's not just the quote unquote ministers, you know, that need to be watching what they post, but any believer needs to ask, hey, is this going to honor Christ? Is this going to tear someone down? And, you know, then go from there after you pass through those gates.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, brother. Really, honestly, like I've been tempted to want to, you know, and it does put us in a position to where you don't want to come off as holier than thou on a high horse or anything, but I'm tempted so many times to tell people that I kind of love and respect lots of people I've never met, obviously, but in this close, tight-knit Facebook community that we have, there's some people that I feel are loved and respected and followed by many, and they would do so much better by setting a better example with the sort of language and content and delivery that they choose to execute. And it's something that I myself learned to be mindful of here in recent times as well. So to each their own, can't judge the journey, but we can do our best to be good examples for others as well, can't we?
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I'm not new to ministry. I'm not new to the Bible and dealing with people, you know, individuals and souls, but a lot of this is new to me. So, you know, I'm doing my best to get up to speed and to get to know, you know, not just be connected to the community, but really know the community. And so I just ask everybody to pray for me in that, because I feel the pressure, but I want it to be a positive pressure. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to be something that causes me to be timid or to shrink back, but I want God to use me in a powerful way. I just want to make sure that I do so with wisdom and, you know, proper etiquette, you know, and some of this, you know, public speaking, all of that stuff, it's just different than any kind of topics I've done before. So in some ways I'm kind of new at this, and so I hope people will, you know, give me a chance to get up to speed and study out some things that I haven't really shared opinion on, because I'm not ready to yet. You know, I've got to be diligent before I can do that, because people are going to listen, you know, to what I say, and they're going to evaluate that as a leader, and I don't want to be premature on that.
And I think that's a noble way to go about it, brother. And you have my respect, and I'm on your side, man. I'm going to do everything I can to be able to meet up with you guys Sunday. This is going to air here Saturday, so anybody that hears it, if you'd like to kind of give a shout out, is it an open invitation for anyone in the area?
Yeah, as long as they just message me, if they can message me on Facebook, because I'm kind of one of those organized guys. Like, I'd like to know if we're going to have 5 versus 15 people, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to just mob into some restaurant and be like, hey, we're here, you know, like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? I think it's only going to be a handful of people, but it is an open invitation. If someone could shoot me, you know, friend me on Facebook or shoot me a message if you're already a friend, just so I know. And this is the cool thing. Lord willing, I'll have baptized this guy, and then we're going to go to lunch. So it's kind of cool. It's like, hey, you know, I'm actually doing ministry, not just a Flat Earth meetup, but this is a ministry trip. I mean, this is exciting for me.
It is.
Yeah, it's open. It's open to the public.
Brother, I look forward to being able to meeting you in person. I love everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
So your Facebook page, Nate Wolf, W-O-L-F-E. Nate is N-A-T-E, right? And then your YouTube page is Fired for Truth, and it's F-I-R-E-D-F-O-R, capital T-R-U-T-H, correct?
Yeah. And let me tell you, too, that
I've got a new email address if anybody wants to contact me, because I do Messenger, but like if someone's listening and they don't, you know, they're not friends with me on Facebook or something, I have a new email address if I could share it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is Nate, it's real complicated, Nate at firedfortruth.org. So if you want to message me, Nate at firedfortruth.org. I did purchase that as a domain, and I will be turning that into a website. It's not up yet, but because I haven't developed the site. But if you want to email me, Nate at firedfortruth.org, that's another way to contact me.
How cool. Well, very good. I will be a follower of that page, and I will lock down that email to be able to contact you from time to time as well, because right now I'm on a Facebook ban, so I would need that to get a hold of you. But I got your number now too, brother, so it was really great talking to you.
Feel free to text me, call me, and let me know for sure on Sunday if you think you'll be there. If you can't make it, I'm sure sometime in the near future I'll be back in that area again, and you know, maybe we can even work something out to do a meetup in your more immediate area.
And just to confirm for the listeners, that meetup is in Louisville, and you said you'd like them to message you personally for, you know, to confirm RSVP kind of style.
You know how many people are coming. It's going to be at a restaurant called Senor Iguanas.
Right on.
I think there might be a few of those, but it's the one that's on Outer Loop.
I can grub down on me some Mexican food.
Yeah, it's really good, man. It's good. I was impressed. So, yeah, but just message me. I can give you some more specific details, and that's going to be Sunday. I'm actually going to meet this guy at 1 to do the baptism, so we're probably going to push the lunch to the meetup about 1, maybe 1:45-ish. So be flexible with us, you know, plus or minus 5-10 minutes.
Very good. And so one last thing I could ask from you, if you wouldn't mind.
This is Nate Wolf, Fired for Truth, and you are listening to the Geocentric Eccentric with WesBlaze.
Thank you very much, sir. That was perfect. I really appreciate that. Yeah, awesome.
Nice. No, that's cool, man. I'm glad we could connect, and hopefully we'll see you Sunday. If not, no big deal. We'll make something happen down the road for sure.
I really
seems like I end up in Louisville area like several times a year. So
do you?
You know,
nice.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Fantastic. I think I can make it happen this weekend as well. So I look forward to it, brother. Much love to you. God bless you, and keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Wes.
Thank you, Nate. Yes, sir. No worries. Have a good one. That was truly inspiring. I hope everybody got as much out of that as I did. But I'd like to play another song that I debuted last time, put it in regular rotation for you guys. Wake Up by WesBlaze Music, yours truly, and Sebastian Calico, a.k.a. Anthony Stover. And when we come back, I have another special guest. I'm going to keep it a secret until the song is over, so hang tight on the Geocentric Eccentric with WesBlaze.
Wake up, you need to 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 wake
We used to play pretend, wake up. We would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away.
Wake up.
We used to play pretend,
wake up.
Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face saying,
wake up, you need to wake up, you need to
we would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away, saying,
wake up, you need to wake up, you need to wake.
We used to play pretend,
wake up.
Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face saying,
wake up, you need to wake up.
Yeah.
Wake
Land of the thieves, home of the slaves. 19 billion, that's 50 million a day. That's what NASA gets, just to lie to the human race. Pretending to go to space, but they fake it right to our face. And they say they moonwalk, but that just wasn't the case. Trying to tell us there's a rover on Mars, but it's a fake. CGI satellites, but I don't see a trace. People everywhere waking up, we're shaking up the place. So if you let me, I can shake up the thoughts that you tend to think of. Cause I fell in love with truth and I don't ever wanna break up. Let's Take a look what's underneath the Hollywood makeup. So much that gets put in our face is straight made up. This place they call a planet that they lied about the shape of. They can play pretend, but me, I'm calling for
wake up.
Freemasons and Zionists, the ones that put the eye on it. Try to say they scientists, but I can't say I'm buying it. Do you know what science is and how that they decided it? They just keep rewriting it to keep us from enlightenment. Knowing that they lying it, stay promoting violence. Knowing that we're gullible products of our environment. No, I can't be silent, and nor will I be compliant. Not reliant on the tyrants to fall if we're not defiant. I can't seem to find the curvature. Total social overture. The sun is small and local to the earth as it encircles her. Nothing like the lies of elite sun worshippers, but up against the Bible, I don't even need interpreters. Earth is flat and motionless. Open up a scope and see a boat across the ocean mist. Chemtrails clogging up what used to be an openness, and fluoridated water come in concentrated dosages. I'm conscious of the brokenness. People all over the place deceived, I hate to see. Space is not a place you see, it's fake, it's only make-believe. Constellations prove that the earth doesn't move, but the liars on wires wanna take away the truth. I'm screaming.
Wake up, you need to wake up, you need to wake up, you need to wake up. We used to play pretend, Wake up. We would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away. Wake up. We used to play pretend, Wake up. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face saying, wake up, you need to wake up, you need to wake up, you need to wake up.
Wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise.
Have you ever wondered why, when you looked up in the sky, exactly how the sun and moon ended up the same size? It's 90 million miles and 250,000. Y'all can beat my poker face, cause that defies some odds. Yeah, I'll tell you this is gambling, with every dose of Ambien. You're managing the trance you're in, so let me be your wake-up call. Let me be your wake-up call. Have you ever been to space at all? Who's above us? One that loves us or aliens that hate us all? Man, I used to catch some Z's on this flat plane. Then the alarm clock rang and all that changed. Like, motionless. Please tell me you see how fat this ocean is. The devil lied to us, lied to you, lied to me. Tried to hide my creator, made me play some hide and seek. But he speaks that if I seek him that, he won't hide from me. If I knock it, he will open it and show me what I need. That greed is the enemy. Forked tongue of the serpent as he dangles from the trees in. Trying to keep us all far, far away from obedience. Trying to take our will and our next of kins. Had us living for the sun, not the S-O-N. So good morning, beautiful. Time to rise and shine. Time to breathe this morning air. Open those sleepy eyes. Yeah, good morning, wonderful. Time to shake them dreams. Feel a savior's love for you. This world ain't what you think, man. Good morning, beautiful. Time to rise and shine. Time to breathe this morning air. Open those sleepy eyes. Yeah, good morning, wonderful. Time to shake them dreams. Feel the savior's love for you. This world ain't what you think. This world ain't what you think. It's time to wake up. You need to wake up. You need to wake up. You need to wake up. We used to play pretend, Wake up. We would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away. Wake up. We used to play pretend, Wake up. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face saying, wake up. You need to wake up. You need to wake. We would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away saying, wake up. You need to wake up. You need to wake. We used to play pretend, Wake up. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face saying, wake up. You need to wake up. Yeah. Wake up.
Lord, Father in heaven, I just want to thank you for everything you do in our lives, Lord. Thank you for my brother West here and for what you've appointed him to do, to give him this platform to reach the world with truth and to just reach out to fellow brothers and sisters. And I pray that you just be with us during our conversation. Help us to know exactly what we need to say. And I pray that there's somebody out there that needs to hear exactly what we're saying, Lord. So just guide our words, guide our minds, direct our path, Lord. And fill us with your Holy Spirit right now. And we love you, and we just want to thank you for all that you do, how you provide for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Very well said, brother. Chills. Absolutely. Thank you for that warm welcome, brother. You were just listening to yours truly, WesBlaze Music, featuring the lyrical talents of Sebastian Calico, and the song was called Wake Up. had to do an encore performance after premiering it on the last show, and I hope to have him on very soon. However, there was somebody else I talked about there that I wanted to have on, and so without further delay, my second guest, although he and I have never met, it sometimes can feel like we have. Very kindred souls we are. He has an awe-inspiring testimony, a wealth of knowledge, and a passion for Christ that I really respect him for. You may know him from his work with Little Light Studios, where they do some great work covering Bible study and prophecy and current events. Additionally, he is Truth to the Youth on YouTube. And last but not least, if you own or have seen someone wearing a Bible Says Flat Earth shirt, we have this guy to thank for his time and effort put into printing those up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mikey Jenny. How are you today, Mikey?
Hey, WesBlaze, my kneesy. So good to be on the show, man, and I'm honored. And thank you so much for that great introduction, man.
Good, brother. I'm happy to hear it. Thank you for joining me on the show. I sincerely appreciate it. So you are somebody that, like myself, is musically inclined, and we have that in common, as you know. I've had a chance to hear some of your music, and I know you said you checked out mine. I was curious, what did you think about it? How's it make you feel, brother?
Dude, I love it, man. You know, I have been rapping for a couple of years, and, well, it's been a while. I used to do it for the world, and we were going to move to California and continue this thing. And, you know, God changed my heart, changed my path, and now I try to write verses that spread some kind of truth, either the gospel or the, you know, expose the powers that be or whatever. But, you know, it's all about truth now.
That's another thing we have in common. It's a big kind of importance to us now these days. Looking back, it never really was for the longest time, right? But now we look and see what kind of influence that putting out music that somebody would actually want to listen to, what kind of influence that can carry with it, and how that's a responsibility on somebody to, you know, convey a message, and what that message can, you know, really teach somebody or do for somebody. And so it's very important in today's world, especially here in these last days, that we spread a message of empowerment, a message of salvation above all, right? And so that's another thing we agree on, that, you know, we didn't always agree with in the past, right? So let that segue kind of into some of your testimony. I know you have quite a few videos on your YouTube channel, and you're not ashamed of being able to say where you came from, but give us a brief version of where you were at in life and what happened to get you to where you are now.
All right, so really I've been a truth seeker as long as I can remember. I remember in elementary school going to the school library and checking out books on ghosts and aliens. I mean, this is like, I'm looking back like kind of weird that they even had those kind of books in the school library, but I've always been a truth seeker. My parents were raised Baptist, went to Baptist schools all their life, graduated, and raised me in church. And you know, I've seen a lot of things. You know, as a kid, you kind of believe things because your parents do, but the older I got, you know, we started experimenting with other churches, more charismatic, Word of Faith churches, and I've seen healings and exciting things. And so, as a upcoming youth, I kind of got into that and was like, yeah, you know, and I was excited about being a Christian. I had accepted Christ when I was probably like 8, maybe 9 years old, and was into the youth and everything. These were youth groups where we were mosh pitting to DC Talk, Jesus Freak. I mean, I'm old. I'm 35 years old, so this is dating myself. But when I started to reach around 12 and 13 years old, I started having these real deep thoughts and doubts and skepticisms that I would ask Christians about, and they never could give me an answer that satisfied me. In fact, sometimes they would say, you know, some things we just won't know till we get to heaven, and that just added to my skepticism. Like, I need answers, and these people don't have it. So, of course, Hollywood made witchcraft look cool. I mean, the movie The Craft had 4 hot chicks doing all these cool spells, and so that was appealing. And I didn't see it then, but I can look back and see now how much the media has made witchcraft look cool to kids, and I know that had a huge influence, whether I knew it or not. So in my search for truth, I started thinking, you know, Christians just think everything is bad that they don't understand. If they don't understand it, it's of the devil. So maybe there's something to this witchcraft thing. Maybe there's power here that they just don't understand, and they're just calling it wrong. So I kind of went down that road. I had internet. It was kind of a new thing back then. I'd just research and read forums and hear people talking about levitating and voodoo and binding and all this stuff. So I started really getting into that. I wouldn't say I ever became like a witch or anything. I still was just truth seeking, but I knew that Christianity, I was just totally turned off of it at this point. I was literally an antichrist. Like, they call it an ABC religion, anything but Christianity. I just thought it has to be out there somewhere. There's got to be, you know, I was an agnostic, but I knew that I believed in these paranormal things that couldn't be explained by science. So I just wondered what all that stuff was. Well, I played around with Ouija boards and did all kinds of things, and all that stuff left me empty and hopeless. And so I was just like, if this is all life is, you know, it seems so depressing. What can I do in my life that's ever gonna mean anything if I just die and rot in the ground? So that thought was so depressing. I was like, well, I got one life to live it up. YOLO. I feel like I started that before it was trendy. So I just drank and smoked all my thoughts away and lived this life in a drunken haze. And then one day my cousin, who I hadn't seen in like 8 years, he helped me move. Me and my father moved to Chattanooga, where I live now. And there was a 5-hour drive. He came all the way to South Georgia to help us move just because he had a pickup truck. And I found out that my cousin had become a Christian, and he was sharing his testimony with me. And the things that he was saying made it seem real. He was just like, man, I know what you're seeing in church makes everything look fake, and you see all these hypocrites, but he's like, man, just read the Bible. He said, dude, I fasted, and I sit in a bathtub, and I just read the Bible, man. And he said, and it's like, it would change things around me. He said, there's secrets in this book, man. He said, just read the Bible. And I mean, he was telling me things like like miraculous things were happening when he read this Bible. So I just started in Genesis and started reading, and my mind was blown. I was like, I have never heard any of this stuff before. And so I started praying, putting God to the test. And I was praying for a job, and I would see God answer my prayers in supernatural ways. Like, every little thing that happened in my life, if it was something that I didn't want, if it was a situation that I didn't want to be in, I could trace that situation back to how he answered my prayers. And I was just like, man, God is not a magical genie where you pray a prayer and you open your eyes and there's a car materialized in front of you. No, he's going so far, he's really setting up the pieces in your life and putting you in the right place at the right time, where these things just, your prayer becomes answered through these events. And there's like no way you could have ever made it happen. And I think it's just further proof. It's like that where God is saying, this is me, you didn't make this happen, obviously.
Absolutely. So I can dig it. Mikey, I don't mean to cut you off, brother, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. I hope you'll hang out with me and continue telling us your testimony. It's been great so far, brother. Thanks for listening to the Geocentric Eccentric. This is WesBlaze, and we will be right back.
Stop! How you did that?
He put plastic up in his armpit.
The whole world's a stage and you're in the audience, and everything you see on the stage is fraudulent. Hey, what's going on, people? Flat Earth Man in the house, and you're listening to Flat Earth Radio Live. Stay flat, y'all.
This is another FER news brief, and I'm your host, Jennifer Michelle. Apparently a growing number of so-called enlightened young adults are not sure the Earth is round. A recent survey revealed these startling results. 76% of adults aged 25 to 34 say they've always believed the Earth is round, compared to 82% of ages 35 to 44, 85% of ages 45 to 54, and 94% of adults 55 and over. These stats are quite shocking when the term flat earthers is so loosely tossed by millennials at those who dare disagree with their positions. But then I suppose we should expect this from millennials who have been taught to reject almost all traditional values and beliefs. This has been an FER News Brief, brought to you by FEMG. Flat Earth Media Group.
Hey John, you don't look so good. What's the matter?
Oh, I always feel tired and run down. You know, no energy. I think it's my poor diet or something.
Well, you know, John, I used to feel the same way. Couldn't sleep at night, couldn't stay awake in the daytime. That's when my doc told me that I had leaky gut syndrome.
Oh, wow. What'd you do? Surgery?
No way. I tried Tarsal. Tarsal is made with the finest, purest cream of tartar and MSM sulfur. And that's all. The fact that it contains all natural ingredients makes it especially desirable in today's toxic world. Tarsal is a white powder that you take every day with water or juice. Taken regularly, Tarsal can clear your leaky gut right up.
Tarsal, huh? So what else does Tarsal do?
Tarsal can help with acne, psoriasis, constipation, gallstones, heartburn, hemorrhoids, hypertension, IBS, and UTI.
Wow, that's quite a formula.
Yes, it is. And Tarsal also helps you to relax, repels insects, and can help you stop smoking.
So, how do I find Tarsal?
That's easy. Just go to tarsal.com or call 619-363-1264. Try a bottle today and begin feeling normal again.
TARSUL.com. Try Tarsal today.
You're listening to FERLive, Flat Earth Radio.
This is a day that's going to be etched in history. It's a quest for truth, and it can seem crazy, but all of us laughed at this topic, including myself. This is probably the most ridiculous thing I ever thought that I'd be doing, and here I am organizing the Flat Earth International Conference, but I'm not laughing anymore.
1, 2, 3, we're not crazy! Some of us are just not!
The earth is flat. If I were your mother, I would slap your face. Anyone who thinks the earth is round has mashed potatoes for brains.
Don't tell me what to believe, or accept what I cannot see. You and your facts, I'm free. If you don't like it, leave. I didn't even want to walk in your shoes. What about me? Flat earth, flat earth. Tell me what to believe, or accept what I cannot see. You and your facts, I'm free. If you don't like it, leave. I didn't even want to walk in your shoes.
The earth is flat. Have you ever asked yourself, what if the earth really was flat?
You're listening to Flat Earth Radio.
Flat Earth Radio.
You're listening to Flat Earth Radio.
Don't tell me what to believe.
Hi, this is Station Programming Manager Rick Lowtech, and I wanted to tell you about a fantastic book entitled Flat Truth, by author Mark Stephen Hollander. The Flat Truth, Your Eyes and Your Reasoning as well as your own perspective. It was taught that what you see here and what your instincts are telling you is wrong. You have officially been brainwashed to a different reality. The globe and the arrogance of our insignificance, of our origins, is the master of deceptions. Attempt to divorce mankind from his creator. The battle for your soul. Flat Truth is available from Zlibris Publications. You can order your copy today by calling 1-888-795-4274, or you can log on to www.zlibris.com. That's capital XLIBRIS. Or you can send them an email at orders@zlibris.com. So order yours today. Flat Earth Truth by Mark Stephen Hollander, one of the recommended publications that we put out here at Flat Earth Radio. Thank you for listening. I'm Rick Lotek.
Flat Earth Truth is also available at ebay.com and Amazon Books. Order your copy of Flat Truth today.
Flat Earth Aotearoa, New Zealand, hosted in Auckland, April 27th and 28th, 2019. A jam-packed two-day, three-part event to showcase Flat Earth and related topics, such as the Antarctic Circle and lands beyond, NASA, scientism, religion exposed, the Matrix control, vaccinations, chemtrails, political globalism and the NWO, fake news and false education, astronomy untouched, weather modification, historical hoaxes, financial systems, what are UFOs and aliens, biblical cosmology, and much more. The three parts include Broaden Your Horizon, a VIP Flat Earthers dinner, and a Unity conference. For tickets and contact information, phone 021-028-93402 or email admin@fenzexpo.co.nz. Or you can write them their address at P.O. Box 51010, Pakuranga, Auckland, New Zealand 2010. Or you can log on to their website at www.fenzexpo.co.nz. The 2019 Flat Earth New Zealand Expo, sponsored by FENZ Trust and FERLive.com. QE 2019 is coming to Southern California, February 22nd and February 23rd, 2019. Speakers will be presenting on the hottest topic of the day. 9/11, was it an inside job? The moon landing, did we really go? Scientism, has science become another religion? CBD, what is Big Pharma hiding from us? Vaccines, are they safe or are they harming our children? And no Question Everything conference would be complete without the hottest topic on the internet today, what is the true shape of the earth? The 2019 Question Everything conference is shaping up to be like no other conference of its kind. This will be the event that people will be talking about for years to come. So get your ticket for the event and the VIP luncheon right now at QE2019.com. Southern California, February 22nd and 23rd, 2019. For additional information, go to QE2019.com. QE2019.com. And if you use promo code FEMG, you'll receive 25% off your ticket price right now. Sponsored by QE2019 and FERLive.com.
This is Hobby Firestein. You're listening to Flat Earth Radio Live. Are they kidding me? They really think the Earth is flat? Whatever, I'm getting paid.
This is Dr. Emmett Brown. You're listening to Flat Earth Radio Live. Marty!
Buenos días, Pedro. ¿Quieres que te corte el pelo?
En la frontera de los Estados Unidos.
Oh, hey, man, what's happening? This is Man. And all of my friends, we'll be listening to FERLive.com, the ferry. Hey, man, what you doing, man? Get out of there. Oh.
Wow, man. You guys really get stoned.
We're back from the commercial break, and I'm WesBlaze Music. This is the Geocentric Eccentric on Flat Earth Radio Live, FERLive.com. And we are back with Mikey Jenny, who was in the middle of his testimony before we had to, stick with the usual programming. So, brother, I would love it if you would go ahead and pick up where we left off.
Yeah, so that's where I was at. I started to believe in God, but I was like this party animal. And I was like, I believe in God. I pray to Him, but I'm just not ready to be a Christian yet. I got this lifestyle, man. I got this party lifestyle. And, sometimes I felt like I was overwhelmed with friends. Like I worked at Hot Topic for 4 years, and for some reason when you work there, it's kind of like you're a celebrity or something. All these people look up to you, and so my phone would be blowing up. Plus I had a clothing line and started this little rap project, and so, I was getting into clubs free. Literally, like I'd be in line, and the security guard would come grab me and say, "Why are you in line, man? You come on in," and just walk me in.
Yeah, I remember at one point, your clothing label that you were a part of was sponsored by Soulja Boy and SOD Money Gang, right? They had some big notoriety going.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff, man. I really believe that that God was orchestrating all that stuff at the time. I was like, man, I kept running into these weird situations. Like, we went to go shoot a music video in California, and I changed my flight back home, and while I was in the little waiting area for the plane, I see at LAX, at the LAX airport in LA, I see this guy decked out in SOD Money Gang wear all over, and I'm like, "Are you with SOD Money Gang?" He smiled. He said, "I'm the CEO." And I'm like, "Dude," and I start showing him pictures of, not Soulja Boy himself, but A-Rab and Jabbar and Lil Playboy wearing my clothes, and Coco Kiss. And he's like, "What?" And he's tripping out. And I'm sitting there showing him this is my clothes. I'm like pulling out shirts out of my bag and giving them to him and stuff. And I'm showing him that we were shooting a music video and showing him scenes of it. And he's like, "Man, y'all doing it big." Dude did a promo video with me in the LAX airport, right on the spot. And I was just like, man, God is like orchestrating all this stuff, making my dreams happen. And that's where it happened. I was at that point. Like, we were going to move to California and try to make this thing happen. And that's when God said, "How close you are to your dream. You're getting Bud Ice sponsorships. You're getting Soulja Boy wearing your stuff and all this." And he's like, "You can make your dream happen, or, it can happen, or you can drop it all and follow me."
Oh, wow.
And, man, so that's where I was at. My testimony isn't like my whole kingdom came crumbling down, so I came crawling back to God. No, God let me see just how close I could have it, and then said, "You can surrender it all and follow me, or you can go down this road." And I think Jesus did that a lot in the Bible. He would approach the fishermen when they had the biggest catch of the day and say, "Drop your nets and follow me." He would approach people when they're at the height of their career, and then tell them to drop it all and follow him.
That's about the third time you've given me really big chills, like deep-seated goosebumps. Because, brother, I feel like the same thing kind of happened to me, where I was at a height of success in business and financially. I was able to be, financially independent and stable, in a sense, for the first time, for any longevity, any consistent basis. And it was during that run, during the height of that, is when I decided to become baptized. And I had a conviction in my heart that I knew it was in the name of Jesus Christ, because I had faith and hope in His truth. And so what would you say, backing up a little bit, you were this party animal, you had definitely reached an understanding and a bit of a conviction that you realized there was God, there was a God, that He existed, and you started to think it was the God of the Bible based on your feelings of other people's testimonies and that experience. Because I'm a firm believer that when people share their testimony in sincerity, like you're doing now, like I've done, like Pastor Nate was just doing, you are able to kind of become a medium for the Holy Spirit to speak to other people, because that moving testimony of the reality of people's experience with Jesus Christ is that proof that so many are looking for. And what they don't get is something I covered in my first episode, is that you really do have to believe before he reveals himself. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. He says, seek and you'll find, not try to debunk me and I'll prove myself to you.
Yeah.
You know, he's knocking on the door of your heart. He's not bashing in the door with a some kind of battering ram. God is not a thief. You know, he's a gentleman. He's knocking and waiting for you to answer. He's wooing you to fall in love with him, whereas the enemy is saying, I'm going to get you no matter what I got to do. I'll make propaganda. I'll offer you all the kingdoms of the world. I'll bribe you. But Jesus isn't like that. He says, let me show you who I am and why you should fall in love with me.
Amen.
And it's just like, you know, if you're trying to win a woman, you know, you subtly do these things, give her flowers and things like that.
I was just about to say, it's never like so many, mostly non-believers will expect, okay, prove it to me. And like you said, you know, he doesn't work like that, that you have to lovingly seek him, like you say. And so many unbelievers expect, sort of like you said earlier, him to be this genie where he magically grants some overnight magical conviction. But so going back to that, though, what I meant to ask you a moment ago, what would you say was the defining moment, kind of the last straw in specific, that even though you had already believed, you weren't ready to leave that lifestyle, which I can relate to, and then you left it, and you said you felt like he was showing you a way of either here's all the fame and glory and riches that you thought you've wanted so far, or drop it all and follow me. What was that moment that said that to you most?
You know, God was real patient with me. I was actually a Christian, a self-professed Christian, growing in a sense. I believe at that moment I was a Christian. I didn't have all the fruit, but I was learning. So at that point, like I said, I thought God was opening all the doors. But prior to that was in 2012. 2005 is when I actually accepted Christ. So I'm this party animal and not ready to become a Christian yet. But every night I had something to do. I mean, every night people were inviting me to parties, and I'm just choosing where I want to go. I'm like, man, I got all these selections. I'll pick this party. Well, one particular night, nobody had anything going on. All my friends were hanging out with a girl or something, so it was like I went home to myself, to my apartment, and I'm literally watching The Simpsons, and at that moment, I feel like I felt lonely. I felt like before I had too many friends, and sometimes I just wanted a night alone, but now that I got this night alone, all I wanted to do was hang out with somebody. And I felt God saying, why don't you pray? I mean, this is like before I accepted Christ. This was when I just was believing but not ready to become a Christian yet. I felt like God was saying, why don't you pray? So I hit mute on the TV, and I bowed my head, and I said, well, I don't know what I'm praying about, but I just thought about any friend that I could think of to pray for. And while I was in that prayer, it was like God said, this is your moment. And I opened my eyes. I was like, I'm not ready for that. I think that was just like some random thought that crossed my mind. That wasn't really God speaking to me. And then it was like this eye-opening revelation. Like when I thought that thought, it was like getting smacked over the head. And it was like, you are rejecting God now. You feel like God is saying to pray and that this is your moment, and you're saying no. And I was just like, there's this moment of realization, like, okay, I can believe in the Bible. I can believe that God is answering my prayers. Why can't I believe that He's saving my life right now? And it's funny because my mom, when she got saved, she had this verse that just totally made sense, unlocked something spiritually in her, and it was believing all possible. She didn't know how to believe in her heart. Everything was in her head. But when she heard that verse, it was like, she said, I can believe. And I remember buying her a magnet when I was a kid that said that verse. And so right then when I said, why can't I believe that God's saving my life right now? God just showed me little visions, little personal things that meant something to me. And I saw my mom telling her testimony, believing all things are possible. I saw that magnet I gave her as a kid. And then I even used to play this video game called Rap of the Rapper.
Yeah.
And he used to spin around and say, I can believe. God show me that. Dude, I was like, God is so cool and personal. Like, these things don't mean anything to God. That game is nothing, but he knew it was like for me. And he's just giving me a little taste. Like, I'm the reason you think things are cool, you know? Yeah. I'm the one that created you. And at that moment, I just gave him to God. I invited him to my heart right then, alone in my house, in my apartment. There was no emotional sermon going on. There was nobody saying, say these words after me. It was just me and God. And that night, I was like totally in the presence of him in a way that still to this day I've never felt. Like, that was just a crazy experience. And beyond any high weed could have ever given me. It wasn't some trip, you know. And I even had this little experience as I was walking back to my room. My cousin was actually living with me, and I didn't want to wake her up because she had school the next day, but we were both sharing my room, and she had a bed on the floor, and I had a bed on the floor on the other side. I was trying to sneak in and be quiet, and something in my mind was just, you know, there's this battle of doubt and fear, or doubt and faith, and as I was walking in there, I was just this little wave of doubt, like, what if all this is fake? And right when that thought hit me, I mean, I'm talking a walk from my doorway to the bed, my body started trembling, my legs started quaking so much that picture frames on the wall were rattling, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna wake up my cousin, and I was like, I gave back into this faith, and instantly, like instantaneously, the tremor stopped, and I took another step, same thing, and then like I'd go. It was like this battle of fear or doubt and faith, and it was just like this, like a war on my soul right then. And I finally make it to my bed, and I felt like I was just being smothered in this love feeling, and that was the beginning of my story. But like I said, it was a long growth, because that was 2005, and then 2012, I'm thinking God's opened all these doors with beer sponsorships and, you know, secular rap artists wearing my clothes and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Brother, it's mind-blowing. I really appreciate you sharing it. You know your story well, and you love the roots that you come from, because it really is a powerful testimony of how far somebody can grow. And even though you say it was a long, grueling battle, like you kind of explained it as, we know God is patient. And it's an amazing thing that we have the story of the prodigal son to refer back to. I've often felt like it related, like I could relate to that story, because it just goes to show, no matter how far we stray and how far we go, he's there with open arms, waiting to come, you know, waiting for us to come back to him. And so you're another example of that, as am I, and it's a beautiful thing, because, you know, it's the glory really is in the complete 180, in the amazingness of the strides that we go through from one extreme to another. And that's how he works, you know. Like, there's a lot of people that have always played by the rules and have always lived it straight, but there's really something powerful to be said that speaks to others when somebody that was down a desperately dark, terrible path, like we can, you know, relate to for the most part, that then was able to turn it around and give all glory to God and watch nothing short of miracles happen in their lives and around them. And so I want to lead that into a topic of discussion that I was curious about your thoughts of. So in the community that we're involved in frequently and often on a day-to-day basis in Facebook, you know, social media, we got a nice community of truthers, of flat earthers, of Bible believers, and of, you know, the body of Christ can be represented on Facebook there. So we have a lot of contradicting opinions, as of course is going to happen when you get a collection of people like that in public forum. But I would say there's an alarming dispute going on, in particular about the name of our Savior, the Messiah, the Christ, and whether his name was or wasn't this or that, and what it is and isn't and this or that. And so it's just, it can be kind of frustrating, and I myself struggled back and forth on my opinion about it. So the debate is this, right? We have what we know and have always heard for all of our lives, the name of Jesus Christ. Can I get an amen? Right? So we have always felt nothing short of what I can only explain is like a divine presence being associated with that name. Agreed. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll lead with this, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts. That yes, I have discovered in my studies that he spoke Aramaic. He was of Hebrew Semitic origin, Middle Eastern descent, and at that time there was no letter J. I agree. There was no J sound, I don't think. No. From what I've found, he did bear a name that the people called him, that he may have called himself. And what I've also found is that I don't think any one of us can 100% say we know the true pronunciation of. So whether you call him Yahusha, Yehoshua, there's 100 different pronunciations that a lot of them sound so similar. Just change one letter here and there, throw it around, mix it around. But we know who you're talking about, don't we? But then there's even an informal pronunciation of Yeshua, which I am fond of. But then what I also recognize is that he came first for the Jews and then for the Gentiles. And then the original Gentiles, from everything I can tell, were the Greek, which the New Testament is written in. So it would make sense that in the Greek tongue, there was made for him a new name. And then not only that, both names were then translated, and not only that, transliterated to become the names that we call him today. And then depending on who you ask and where you ask them, you're going to get a different pronunciation, a different sound, a different noise and utterance that our vocal cords can make. But it all comes down to this: who we're calling upon in spirit. And that's what that means to me. So I'm very curious what your thoughts are. Do you feel like there's divine power in the name of Jesus Christ?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
I do too.
You know what? I think Jesus is multilingual, and I think Satan is multilingual as well. And I know that when I say the name of Jesus in a spiritual warfare prayer, it makes Satan and his demons flee instantly. I never experienced spiritual warfare until I fully surrendered, and that was in New Year's 2013. Like I said, I was still living kind of worldly, doing rap shows and, still doing worldly things that I shouldn't have been doing. And Satan never messed with me. I was in his camp, so there wasn't really any need. But after I surrendered everything, I started to experience things I never experienced, like waking up at 3 in the morning, terrified to open my eyes. Like, I'm awake, but I haven't opened my eyes yet, and I feel like there are demons looking at me, and I don't want to open my eyes and see that. So I just start praying spiritual warfare, and I'm praying the prayer, and the moment I say the name of Jesus, it's like this peace comes over me, and that blackness disappears instantly. So I do believe in the power of the name of Jesus. My name on my birth certificate is Michael, but if I go to France, I'm going to be called Michelle. My friends know me as Mikey. Many names. People call me Mickey, and I don't correct them because I just feel awkward. Jesus was called many things in the Bible. He's the Prince of Peace, the Lamb.
He has 1,000 names, does he not?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think he knows when we're talking to him, as long as we're not calling him Buddha or Allah or something like that, I think we're safe.
Names that are, more or less evident, attributed to those ABCs, anything but Christian, which we know Satan comes in many counterfeits. Many counterfeits. After all, one of his 5 I wills was that he wanted to be worshipped like the Most High. So it's no doubt and understandable that he created so many counterfeits and false doctrines and false images of Christ, especially when he took advantage of the results of the Tower of Babel and how the prophecy of the virgin birth and the Messiah was, out there for people to know about and hear of. For how long would you say? Have you looked at the timeline of how long the prophecy had been around and existing before the time of Christ's birth?
Well, you know, I know that Eve knew that there was going to be a savior to save them, and she thought it was going to come from her bloodline, you know.
Oh, wow.
She probably thought that Cain, her firstborn, was going to be the Messiah, or could be, you know. I think God has given us prophecy verbally, man to man. But yeah, I haven't really studied real deep into that.
No. Yeah, it's interesting.
What you're talking about is like the zeitgeist films and stuff are saying that Christ is really just all these pagan deities, but Satan knows the Bible better than any of us.
Oh, tell me about it.
Counterfeit it.
I know, right? So that's unfortunately, that's an interesting point you bring up, zeitgeist. I don't know too many others that really can say that they watched that and that it was anything meaningful for them, but it was for me at the time. I'll say I was... what was that? Freshman year, probably for me, maybe even a little earlier, when I first caught wind of the Zeitgeist film. And that was, I'll have to say, I can admit, that was my intro into conspiracy of any kind and researching truths that went, you know, against what we had been told. And so...
Were you a believer at the time?
So yeah, that's something I covered in my last show, is that I was raised a believer. But even before and around that time, me and my mother both often had kind of, not necessarily debates, but just conversations where we brought up a lot of points that from everything that we knew at the time and had been told and whatnot, and that we struggled reconciling our belief in creation with what we're told from mainstream modern science. And so being a believer and also having gone through at that point already, 8, 9 years of indoctrination and conditioning and spiritual crushing that is the heliocentric model and just modern mainstream society, okay? So after having gone through all of that, of course, at this point in my life, it was a very vulnerable time. So, of course, Satan sends Zeitgeist. And so the whole first third of that movie, I didn't know what to think because I was just blown away. They made so many very interesting points that, you know, because I didn't know the scriptures, I was quite frankly deceived by at the time. Whereas the whole deal about 9/11 was awesome. That was great. If they would have just made it about that and the third part with the financial system, you know, that would have been great. But they had to go in and promote this antichrist agenda, and I hate them for it. But it was a test that I am thankful and grateful that I've been able to overcome and see how much is actually debunked about that, you know, just blatant lies were used to support, you know, that Antichrist agenda, and I don't get down with it anymore, and I hate to see, but so many others are deceived by that way of thinking. So do you remember seeing that too?
Yeah, I was going to say, I still think 2/3 of that movie are really good. It seemed like it was kind of like in 3 parts, and once they got into the Christianity thing, that's where I disagree. But yeah, they made some really good points. That's cool you said that was like your first introduction to conspiracy theories. Right. I remember my dad was in the military for 8.5 years, and I remember in high school looking over his shoulder what he was looking at on the internet, and he was looking at gas masks. I actually had some kind of a gas mask fetish, is kind of the wrong word, but I like gas masks. The first tattoo I ever got was on the back of my neck of a gas mask. Yeah. And I owned gas masks, but when I seen him looking at them online, I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, just looking, you know, I just thought about getting this, you know, just in case maybe something happens, we go to war or something. I just busted out laughing. I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like, I was so brainwashed, I didn't even think we could go to war. But so I kind of knew my dad was having these things going on, but then one day he was like, just watch this movie with me and tell me what you think. And we sat down and watched Loose Change. My dad presented Loose Change to me probably in, I don't even know what year that was.
That's too cool. Like 2008, 9, yeah, somewhere in there.
And I was just like, I believe it. I believe everything it says, but I did not know how deep further. I didn't know how it affected me and everybody. I just thought this is something greedy, corrupt people did in New York City. But now I see how it affects all of us.
So, looking back, knowing what I know now, it's funny to me and kind of strange how popularized things like that were, in particular Zeitgeist and Loose Change. Do you remember it being kind of a big deal that a lot of people knew about them at the time and do still, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, you've heard of how one of the rules that the elite like to work under, I don't know if it's something that they're ordained to have to adhere to or if it's something that they do of their own volition, but I call it, and a lot of other people call it, revelation of the method. Something that they do whereas they have no problem putting the truth in plain sight, and they understand the topic of putting, you know, the best place to hide a secret is right under somebody's nose, and furthermore it can cause a division tactic for them when they're able to present the truth on one channel and one medium and then turn around and have this lie going on the whole time, so that the people that are smart enough and the people that actually believe in this other source, this independent source seemingly, they kind of start to question things and believe differently, and now they got this fight going on. It seems like it would be a divisive technique, but furthermore also one of their ways of just putting the truth just right out there, like they do with Flat Earth in so many movies, like they do with other truths. And so doesn't that seem like it could be that Zeitgeist was not only a inside job like 9/11, which they didn't have any problem letting the truth of 9/11 become popularized eventually, and then but along with that they could tie in this Antichrist agenda that could hit so many at a crucial time. You know, doesn't it make sense that that's something they could do or would do?
Yeah, you almost, that's kind of a new thought for me, but I really when I started to wake up to this conspiracy world, I loved Alex Jones, man, and I might ruffle a few feathers here, but here lately, I'm starting to wonder if he's a double agent. You know?
Oh, brother. Go ahead.
He really puts a lot of truth out there, man, a whole bunch, but there's a lot that he doesn't say and a lot that he kind of refrains from saying, so it kind of makes me wonder.
Here's the deal breaker, Mikey. Here's the deal breaker. He's on mainstream television. Right? He's on cable networks. True, okay, so my firm belief now to these days at least, and it's virtually true, meaning I do believe there are some exceptions, but I used to not think this way. I was like, oh, of course there's going to be the good guys and the bad guys, but now I think that if they are on the silver screen, the TV screen, if they're on the radio waves, if they are publicized and mass-produced media and popularized as celebrities, then they are a puppet controlled by the elitist cabal that we're all against. And so, like I say, I think there are maybe some exceptions. I can't name them and wouldn't name names for fear of being wrong. But what I can say is that, brother, I have a video for you to check out. I'm a fan of ODD TV. Matt Prosella does some great work. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of his work, videos, music videos, right? So there's one that that covers probably about 25-30 minutes straight of nothing but the utmost compelling evidence that Alex Jones is the artist formerly known as Bill Hicks. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
You heard that?
Yeah, dude, one of the funniest memes I saw whenever he got shut down, it's like a comic strip. Somebody did it really well, but it shows Alex Jones like they're saying, hey, they shut down our account, and he's like, oh, let me break into my old account on MySpace or Facebook. I'm logging into Bill Hicks's account.
Exactly. Yes. So did you get it at that time when you saw that meme? Had you heard already about that conspiracy?
Oh yeah. I've been looking into that. One thing I think is the elite will never shut down the truth completely because they want the truth coming from sources that look like ridiculous things.
Yeah, that too.
Like the tabloids and things. They want the truth in those kind of sources so that the truth will be laughed at.
For sure.
And so Alex Jones, hot-headed, and you've seen the music videos they make out of him saying the most ridiculous things.
Because he really says those things.
Yeah, they want the truth coming from that source.
Yes, and sources that they can control. And so that's the key point in all of that, is that controlled opposition. We have to realize that it's all a stage. It's all just a play that they're playing out. It's one big club and we're not in it, right? So They are really literally putting on a script that they hire actors to play the parts of, and I kid you not, it's disturbing that they have the majority of the masses duped on several occasions, and not all of which I'm completely convinced of, but there are more than one accounts of the case being that Hollywood and the elite use the same character played by multiple people, and then sometimes the same people play multiple characters. So I'm a firm believer, tell me if you've looked into this at all, that the current Eminem, right, Slim Shady Marshall Mathers, the one that we hear on the radio and see in the music videos and see publicized, popularized today, I'm convinced that he's not the same dude. What have you looked into about that?
Yeah, dude, I am on that with you. Actually, my boss, he worked in Hollywood, and he actually met Eminem one time, and every once in a while I take him down the rabbit hole a little further, and I show him something like that, and at first I was just telling him, I was like, you ever heard of clones and this and that? He's like, I don't know about all that.
See?
And I said, look at this video of Eminem, dude, and as soon as he came on the screen, his eyes got wide and his mouth open, he goes, that's not him. He's like, I met him. He's like, that ain't him.
Okay, tell me about it. So I'm saying, okay, there's undeniable evidence that literally, I'm telling you, Alex Jones, same thing. Alex Jones literally admits on more than one occasion, and he kind of winks it off, shrugs it off as if he's joking, smiles, shrugs, right? But more or less outright says it, that he was Bill Hicks. And so if you watch this video, I'll have to send you the link where it's ODD covering that. He talks about he just shows all the evidence that, and ODD's great and just flawless at delivering that kind of message. So you got to see it, because not even halfway through it I was like, oh, no doubt, duh, that is the same guy. What's going on here? Yeah. So I'll just say, I'll throw out on a limb, I'm not sure of it, but I think it's very possible that Morgan Freeman is Jimi Hendrix, was Jimi Hendrix.
I've been seeing that.
You saw that? That was me, more than likely. If you saw a meme about it, I was the one spreading that. And then, so like I say, and I even think I post in that post where I share it, I'm like, so what do y'all think? You know, is what I'm sharing, and there's interesting pictures to go along with it. Furthermore, you got. We said Eminem, Morgan Freeman is Jimi Hendrix. Oh, JFK. You know, there's a dozen conspiracies surrounding the assassination, quote unquote, of JFK. And so I was, you know, we thought it was an inside job. We thought it was the CIA was hired because they were really against him and he was really against them. And what I think these days is more likely, because if we look, there are more than one videos of the assassination with JFK. Have you seen this, where there's one with like a 4-seater car, and there's another one with a 6-seater car?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so there's multiple different, you know, video accounts of this occurrence. So there's something fishy off the top. It was a publicist, you know, just anytime the government does anything with any of their puppets, you gotta, nowadays, I think everybody's starting to wake up to, you gotta question all of it. Like, is any of it even real? So in the sense that I think it could have been kind of a staged ploy of whatnot, I think it's very possible that JFK himself was not actually killed, if anybody was killed, and then that he could have became Jimmy Carter. If you search, you know, there's, as much as YouTube censors, there's a lot of stuff on there that I just know that they think nobody's going to believe this, but who knows how much truth there is to it, right? So there, if you search JFK is Jimmy Carter, there's some weird stuff there that when you do the overlays of the face, just all the facial features seem to line up. But there's that, and then
if we knew the truth of everything, our minds would just melt, I think.
It's crazy.
You know, I wear a thick foil hat, but the Mandela effect is one that I'm highly skeptical of.
Me too. Yeah, I used to be on it.
People are just false memories and stuff, but like you said about the car, they could be pushing this Mandela effect to be like,
Yeah.
Oh, no, it wasn't a cover-up. It's a Mandela effect.
Exactly. See,
go down that rabbit trail instead.
controlled opposition. Oh, did you see? So it was since the emergence of this Mandela theory stuff, right? Mandela effect stuff. They erected a statue of Mandela, Nelson Mandela. I forget where it was, but it was a giant statue. In his ear, there was a rabbit. Like, it was all a bronze statue, and they put a rabbit in his ear. But then what's interesting is that the people like freaked out. It was like at a college or something. They weren't happy about it, and they demanded that it be removed, and they did.
No way.
Yeah. So isn't that another little interesting thing? It's just, I think you're right that the Mandela effect is largely just misunderstandings. Just like, so the one thing that really got me about the Mandela effect was that I was an avid reader from the ages of, who knows what, like 5 when I started to read till 8. 10 years old, too old to be reading them. The Berenstein Bears, right? Berenstein, spell S-T-E-I-N, like a regular name that we're used to. And then now it is truly Berenstain. And if everywhere you look, the majority of what you'll find spells it S-T-A-I-N, Berenstain. And it's all of it's wrong. No, that's not right. That's how I feel about it. It was not like that. I remember it. I saw it in my head. I had them in my hand. But come to find out, there is evidence suggesting that there was a change in ownership, and in order to, do the legalities of it, it was best that they change the name by one letter. And that's how it works sometimes in legalities and courts.
I'm a very visual person, so the two that still kind of bother me is, and I've never been into Star Wars, but I've seen enough of it to, to brand my brain with it. And like I said, I'm a visual person. I don't ever remember that silver leg on C-3PO, dude. And the Monopoly Man not having a monocle. I mean, in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, when they pretended to be the Monopoly Man, he had a monocle. If you look at any kind of costume, Halloween costume, dude's got a monocle.
See, so I'd be curious. I'd be curious, who is it that's saying that he never had a monocle? Is that really the case, or is it that he just did at one point and they redesigned the character and now he doesn't? Well,
you can look at every official Monopoly game card or whatever, and he doesn't have a monocle.
Stuff that, that's what I find interesting, is there are a couple occurrences that it's difficult to explain how, if you look back, things that existed before it changed, if it did change, then now all of a sudden things that are, that should display it one way are showing it a different way. And I think that it's weird, it's interesting, and it's another one of those things. Is it a controlled opposition? Is this the elitists playing a trick on us? Because that's what they love to do, just lie and play tricks.
You kind of got my brain thinking now about that JFK car, because I keep seeing it in these Mandela things, but when you look at the photographs of Tupac's car, and like when he got killed, supposedly, just look into that, man. Like, the photographs that they released, the car looks completely different. Like, the shape, the angle it's taken at, I can't remember the precise details, but when you see the photographs side by side, you're like, this isn't the same car, the same event, nothing.
Yes, brother. So another one.
What's going on with the JFK thing, because I never even thought about it being fake. I just thought he was trying to spread the truth, and they capped him for it.
That's right. So that reminds me of one other one, the Beatles. Were you ever a fan of the Beatles?
A little bit before my time. I was more into black metal.
Right. But there's a conspiracy surrounding, was it Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
He died, and then he was replaced, and they kept it quiet that the original one died, and then the one that replaced him was 4 inches taller and was right-handed, could not play left-handed bass. And so in order, they tried to tour, and they just couldn't pass it off because he couldn't learn left-handed bass, and the Beatles stopped touring, and that was the reason why, was because they couldn't continue the charade that they had replaced the guy. And so it was just, they plastered it all over in their album covers, and they just kind of leaked the truth there in symbols, Like in one of them, there was a very much looked like a funeral on one of their album covers. I wish I knew the name of it, but they had the flowers out in front. Huh?
Sergeant Pepper and the Lonely Heart Man, I think.
That might have been it, but yeah, and Aleister Crowley was in the background. That's the one. It said in the flowers, you know, his name, and it had a left-handed guitar in there too, which was just oddly reminiscent of, you know, a funeral for the guy in the band. And so that's just another example where that's how they play. That's how they do in their staged. And I think it goes all the way back to even William Shakespeare. Have you heard that whether or not he was even a real person, the majority of the plays and writings that were attributed to William Shakespeare were not even him? It was people working under that pseudonym.
That is completely new to me.
Yeah, dude. So it just goes all the way back. You know what I mean? That's what they do. That's how they put on their charades, and they love keeping us in the dark and mixing information up. So you're onto something when you're saying that you think Alex Jones is a controlled opposition shill. Now, I'm not one to point fingers in the truther community and say this guy's a shill, that guy's a shill. I don't have evidence. But if they are on the mainstream, they're being paid to read a script, as far as I'm concerned. That goes for the presidents and the politicians as well, I feel like. Don't you?
I'll tell you the one thing that kind of got me questioning Alex Jones was he completely went off on a dude and was cussing him out about the no planes. He's like, the no planners are just completely crazy. They've just lost it. And to think that he wouldn't even go down that...
No planes?
No plane?
You're talking about 9/11?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So when you look up no planes, if you actually investigate it instead of just blowing it off, I mean, there's so much evidence that...
I don't believe there were planes either.
So when he, that's what I'm saying, he puts out some truth, but when it goes a little too far, he starts pulling back the reins, and that makes me question.
For sure. Yeah, so controlled opposition is a real thing. So that being said, we can segue that into what a diet, or what some are calling a lifestyle, has started to become popularized in this same mainstream media agenda that we're talking about and trying to expose. So when it's said that we see an overwhelming amount of evidence that the human body, that we are not supposed to, or it's not beneficial to us to consume near as much meat as we do or have been accustomed to, at the very least, not near as much, right? So there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that it would be much healthier if we cut out at least 90% of the amount of meat that we intake, because that's how often we eat meat and how much we shouldn't. According to my opinion. Now, to be honest and upfront, most days I'm vegetarian, right? Most days. So there's times when I do partake. Now, when I do eat meat, I'll be honest and also say I prefer to eat clean. I think there is evidence suggesting that the animals and the meat that was expressed to us that it wasn't made clean for us, I feel like there's evidence suggesting that it's not clean for us, not good for us, and that there's negative effects that can come from eating them. So when I do eat meat, from time to time, it's clean, but most days I'm vegetarian, and I feel like it's becoming kind of a popularized agenda to push vegetarianism and mostly veganism in the mainstream. Have you noticed this too?
I have, but I think you can't stop the world from waking up that our food is being poisoned. Even the mainstream media has come out and say that. I know that MSNBC, and which is weird, I took a screenshot of that when I seen it come up on MSNBC, but now I can't find it anymore. But PETA's been saying for a long time that they put cancer-causing arsenic in the chicken, and then MSNBC actually comes out and says the FDA now admits 70% of the U.S. chicken contains cancer-causing arsenic. Mainstream media. I don't believe everything the mainstream media says, but when they come out with things like that, it makes you question. And then, there was the whole thing about ammonia meat filler, and I saw this with my own eyes. I took pictures of it at Walmart. I'm like you, I don't eat meat, but occasionally I think, yeah, I'll try to eat some fish or something just to change it up. So I was looking at this fish fillet. One was gray, one was pink. Same brand, same type of fish. So I'm like, okay. So I flip it over. The pink one says whatever the type of fish was, and then it says, and carbon monoxide for pink coloring. Then I look at the other one, and it just says the name of the fish. I'm like, carbon monoxide? This is a poison, and you're going to do it just so it's pretty pink instead of gray. I mean, that's facts. That's not conspiracy theory. I mean, you can look at the ingredients.
It's printed there on it, right, yeah.
So I do believe that there's an awakening when it comes to our health.
Definitely.
That's why I became a vegetarian in 2013, New Year's 2013, but since then, you know, I've seen that we weren't created to be meat eaters. I mean, God created Adam and Eve in a perfect world where there was no death. If there's no death, how can you eat animals? You might have some, you know, extremists that'll say, oh, well, if you eat fruit, you're killing something that's alive, but I'm talking about something that breathes, has the spirit, ruah, pneuma in it. There was no death in the Garden of Eden, so to think that Adam was running around chasing down hogs and listening to them squeal as he killed them, and the blood poured out and he consumes their flesh.
Right.
That's not biblical. And then, you know, when Christ comes to restore the earth, a lot of, you know, we forget that we're going to live on earth for eternity. You know, a lot of people think about heaven, but God's going to come and restore the earth. And Isaiah talks about how the lion will eat grass like the ox. Even the lion is going to be a vegetarian. So it's going to be back to a world where there's no death, and we're just going to all be vegetarians eating plants.
So you mean to tell me that, right, you mean to tell me that in the beginning of time, it's stated that God didn't even give instructions on what meat was okay to consume, and he didn't even really condone eating meat until after the flood, just about, right?
Yeah, he said every green herb bearing seed that it be for meat for you.
He did.
A lot of people think that this whole clean and unclean thing is some kind of Torah terrorist Mosaic law, and you got me under the law and all this. No, this goes way before Moses. This is Noah's day when God was lining up the animals to the ark. He told Noah to take 2 of every unclean beast and 7 of every clean beast. Now, why would he take 7 of every clean beast? Well, when you're on a boat for 40 days and 40 nights and you're going to land on a flooded world with a bunch of dead vegetation, what are you going to eat? What are you going to offer the sacrifice? So God did make provision to sustain a family on a world that had no vegetation anymore. And
in a world, and in a world where Christ hadn't died to atone for sin yet, where they still had to perform sacrifices because the blood was, you know, the atonement.
Exactly. So, you know, God made this world so perfect that if one type of species dies out, it can affect our world in drastic measures. So, to try and justify eating a swine that eats its own feces and all, you know, and buzzards or whatever, they eat rotting corpses, bottom feeders in the bottom of the ocean. God made these things to clean up. These are the garbage men of the earth. They're the garbage disposals. And if they didn't exist, there would just be rotting corpses all over the world, and disease would be blowing in the wind.
I never thought of it like that. Wow. See, I'll be honest and say that I've entertained thoughts that the fallen angels had something to do with breeding the abominations that are called the unclean meat, and that these weren't originally God's creations. It's like as if, why would he create them and tell us we have dominion over all of them, but then say some are clean and unclean, you know, after the fact, if he created all of it and all of it was good, apparently. You know, that's how I kind of rationalize the idea that these were evil creations, not of God. But you put it in a you know, different way to look at it, a different perspective. I'd never heard of it like that.
Well, you know, think about maybe they, I don't know, I do believe that they serve a purpose, but maybe they didn't have a purpose before the fall. I mean, if there was no death, then they wouldn't, what would a vulture eat? Maybe he'd just eat leaves, you know. I do believe that after the fall, it changed our entire world. So there's atheists who say, why would God create a mosquito or a parasite and things like this? And that actually, I think, had an effect on Darwin and made him become an atheist. But I don't believe that these things were created to be what they are today. You know that only a female mosquito drinks your blood.
Really?
The male mosquitoes, they eat nectar or whatever, but the female mosquito, when she's pregnant and things like this, she can't get enough nourishment from maybe some extinct plant that doesn't exist anymore, so she has to go and drink our blood. All this is because of death and because of the sin of the world and the curse that we live under now. In a perfect world, mosquitoes will eat nectar or whatever, but now we have things like parasites, and all of this is because of the fall. Even a rose having a thorn, when you look at how it's created, it's actually a branch that's trying to come out, but it's twisted super tightly into a thorn. But I bet in the new earth they will not have a thorn on them.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put that too. I like it.
I recommend looking up Walter Veith, V-E-I-T-H. You'll know him. He has like a German accent. This guy has a wealth of knowledge, hours and hours and hours. He was an evolution professor in Germany, I think, but he had to leave his job because he was an evolution professor, atheist, who became a Christian, and he couldn't continue lying to students, so he wanted to teach the truth, and so he had to lose his job. But he has all these sermons about creation, and dude is just very intelligent, and I learned a lot of that type of stuff about the fall, how it affected creation through him. So Walter Veith is a good guy to look up.
Very good. Well, so bringing all that back to what we were talking about earlier with different figures in the media and different celebrities and politicians, very clearly being actors and just, reading off their scripts, playing their parts. So with the emergence of certain celebrities, to name a few, I was watching an episode of Saturday Night Live. It was actually the New Year's Eve, quote-unquote, episode of Saturday Night Live when Miley Cyrus was on there, right? Hannah Montana, Disney's, product. She was on there. She mentioned that she was a vegan at least twice on that episode, and then they continued to talk about it even after she was off camera, how she's a vegan, and just kind of drilling that into people's heads. And then even more recently, I noticed Beyonce and Jay-Z are combining their efforts with some cook who's trying to be famous, writing a book, and they're putting in there how they're supporting a vegan lifestyle and how they've changed their lifestyle to fit with that. And so it's alarming when we know that these people are puppets for an agenda that, if we look at their music videos and we look at the message they support, it's very anti-Christ. It's very satanic, and a lot of the symbolism that they use is very revealing of that, right? So to imagine that they are now pushing veganism, something that we know from experience, from experiment, and from evidence, that cutting meat out and living a meatless lifestyle and having a meatless diet is beneficial. It's scary now to imagine
7 to 10 years extra on your life.
It can, yeah. It's recorded too. Like I've personally seen testimonies, countless testimonies of people that have a story that shows how going meatless really benefited them. And I can say that when I started cutting meat out and ate a lot less meat, my skin cleared up a lot more. I lost a lot of the excess weight. I wanted to eat less, and I had what I felt like was more energy more often with eating less. And then on top of that, there's so much more just depth, I feel like, to the palate that exists within the 80,000 edible plant varieties that exist on the face of this earth, whereas we've been so conditioned and programmed to eat the same 3 living sentient beings every day for almost every meal. So it's just, but what I'm getting at is that it's scary now to see that these elitists who use their puppets and their actors to push agendas that further their evil agenda are now promoting and condoning veganism and pushing that. What does that mean for the future of what's available on the market for the average vegan or vegetarian? And so when we know what they've done to so many other foods, it now provides them like a foot in the door, I think, for them to be able to poison and control what gets on the shelves for vegan and vegetarian options. And that's a concerning aspect, I think.
Yeah, this whole time you've been saying this, I've been just sitting here trying to think, like, what could the agenda be? Also, Taco Bell is now to release a vegan menu, and the one thing that I think this direction could go, because you think these sellouts would be, Jay-Z eating a McDonald's burger or something for $1, but the one thing that this direction could be going is the whole New World Order, where animals have more rights than you type thing, where these are no people zones on the map, and this whole, what they call the green dragon, this whole green movement, it's good in theory, and it's good if it wasn't controlled by wicked people to go green. I mean, if we truly cared about going green, we wouldn't have, we'd be having Tesla technology right now. The technology exists. If you have a lightning ball at your house, or if you've ever been to a museum and you see one of these scientist guy make your hair stand up, like, the technology exists, but we use it for this little petty entertainment instead of powering entire cities. So they don't really care about that, because that would take away their money from the oil companies and all this. But when they put the idols out there, they know that the sheep will follow what the idols do. So if the idols are saying go vegan, the next step will be animals have as much rights as we do, which I do not believe. I'm an animal lover, of course.
Well, that's kind of what they've been pushing with Marxism and Darwinism, that we are on the same level as animals. Like, if a beast is our ancestor, then we are no much more or less. And that was a big root, like a platform that they had to build upon for racism, to be able to say that one form of man or species of man was lesser evolved than another. And so, yeah, I can see how that fits together. I'll just point out, though, that I'm under the impression we've been in the New World Order for quite some time. I think it was announced on the back of the dollar bill with Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? New Order of the Ages. Whereas the One World Order is what is coming to a city near us, or city near you, right? Whereas it's going to be, the reign of the Antichrist is what is projected to happen next in biblical prophecy, from what I can see. So just to kind of touch base, there you go. So just to kind of touch base on that, we don't have a lot of time left, Mikey, but I do want to cover more of everything you've covered. I'll recommend to the listeners, Mikey has done some fantastic, just mind-boggling work on decoding the prophecy of Revelation when it refers to the beasts of Revelation, specifically the first one in one of my favorite videos of his, and then the mark of the beast and what that means.
This is a Flat Earth News Brief brought to you by FENewsNet.com. This is another Flat Earth News Brief, and I'm your host, Rick Lowtech. This story from July 1st, 2018. Why do rockets never go straight up when they launch? We have all seen televised NASA rocket launches from over the last 5 decades. Some of you have even witnessed a rocket launch in person from the ground. But did you ever see the rocket go into outer space? Of course not. Nobody has. All you see is the rocket ascending in a curve toward the sky. The rocket eventually goes so high that it disappears within the stratosphere. After all, we must turn to the television to watch the video feed from the rocket. It is usually a fuzzy and distorted picture that shows a lot of blackness, which is supposed to be outer space. As for the Earth, it looks like a bright blue circular ball. How do we know that this is not CGI or some green screen in a Hollywood-like studio? If the rocket is ascending in a curve, then it would eventually have come back down like an arc. So where does it descend? There is never any sign of rockets crashing back down on land. However, there is a big, beautiful ocean with no people around for these rockets to crash in. This would explain why NASA chooses coastal areas to conduct their rocket launches at. Test rocket hits firmament dome. The curvature motion of the rocket prevents it from crashing into the upper dome of the Earth. If the rocket were to ascend in a perfectly straight and vertical motion, it would crash right into the dome. To test this theory, a civilian crew of space explorers launched their own test rocket into the sky. They attached a camera to the spinning rocket so people could see the first-person perspective from it in real time. When the rocket got to about 73 miles in altitude, it suddenly stopped spinning and then hit a barrier. There were 2 cameras used to verify this incident. NASA continues to deny that the Earth is flat, despite this evidence. But as amateur flight technology becomes more advanced, the civilian world is getting closer to proving the real truth about our flat world. Other photographic evidence exists which illustrates the curving rockets very clearly. You can now see how these rockets left a smoky fire trail behind them, which curves just like an arch. If you show these photographs to the scientific community, they will simply claim that they are doctored. If that's the case, then why should we believe that NASA's photos and videos are not doctored? They certainly have the money and resources to produce fake images better than any civilian could. For more Flat Earth news and additional information on the Flat Earth data, log on to FENewsNet.com and stay right here on Flat Earth Radio, FERLive The Ferret, for additional news briefs on the Flat Earth. I'm your host, Rick Lotek. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again. Hey, John, you don't look so good. What's the matter?
Oh, I always feel tired and run down. You know, no energy. I think it's my poor diet or something.
Well, you know, John, I used to feel the same way. Couldn't sleep at night, couldn't stay awake in the daytime. That's when my doc told me that I had leaky gut syndrome.
Oh, wow. What'd you do? Surgery?
No way. I tried Tarsal. Tarsal is made with the finest, purest cream of tartar and MSM sulfur. And that's all. The fact that it contains all natural ingredients makes it especially desirable in today's toxic world. Tarsal is a white powder that you take every day with water or juice. Taken regularly, Tarsal can clear your leaky gut right up.
Tarsal, huh? So what else does Tarsal do?
Tarsal can help with acne, psoriasis, constipation, gallstones, heartburn, hemorrhoids, hypertension, IBS, and UTI.
Wow, that's quite a formula.
Yes, it is. And Tarsal also helps you to relax, repels insects, and can help you stop smoking.
So, how do I find Tarsal?
That's easy. Just go to Tarsal.com or call 619-363-1264. Try a bottle today and begin feeling normal again.
TARSUL.com. Try Tarsal today.
Thank you for listening to FERLive.com, The Ferret.
FERLive.com is an FEMG production.
Hi there. How are you? I'm Jennifer. Oh my gosh. It's like so wonderful to have you along with us. You're tuned into FERLive The Ferret. Who are we? We are the first internet radio station to ever integrate Flat Earth music with Flat Earth talk and Flat Earth news. We're a one of a kind. We're about teaching and accepting cosmologies that depict the Earth as flat. The search for the shape of the Earth is the search for truth. When you come to understand and you're awake, you will also come to know that it's the same world, different view. The Earth is flat. And we're FERLive the Ferret. Coming to you from the Flat Earth capital, live from sunny San Diego, California, USA. We now continue with our regular programming. Thanks for listening. And please, have a wonderful life. I just love seeing all you people out there of the Flat Earth. May you be blessed.
I love you, Jennifer. Please do not spurn me again.
Not this again, Frederick. I told you before. If you don't leave me alone, I'll kill you.
I would rather choose death. Death next to love is a trivial thing, my darling. Come to me now. I love you, Jennifer. I love you, but Jennifer, oh dear. She's gone. She's gone. She's gone. She's gone. She's gone.
Hey there, this is your old buddy Rick Lotek reminding you to catch the Shadow Effect Show with Rick and Mark Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Friday on the weekday afternoons. And also want to remind you of our brand new show, Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis. And you can catch her on Wednesdays, and starting every Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. Make sure that you keep it here on the Ferret, because we have some wonderful, exciting new program coming your way. And check us out on FERLive.com and look up at the top there where it says schedule, listen. And you'll find out a lot more about the schedules and the programs that we have listed here on FERLive.com. Once again, welcome to FERLive. Wonderful to have you. FERLive.
Listen on, as this is the truth of it. Humans are always fighting over something, be it football, the color of our skin, religion, or territorial rights. But fighting leads to killing, and killing gets to warring, and that damn near was the death of us all. Quit fighting. You are not on a spinning ball commuting through a vast emptiness called space, O ye people of the plane. The earth is flat. Keep it real and keep it live on FERLive.com. The Ferret. The only flat earth related music and talk integrated, never overrated flat earth internet radio station.
That and the depth of it and the breadth of all of it. But if you could give kind of, I know we get compelled most days, it feels like lately, to just want to warn people. Can't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, so you just feel this onsetting, especially people we know and love or have been around. We just can't help but be overwhelmed with an overwhelming sense of wanting to warn them. and tell them of the truth that we've uncovered, and the truth of the Word of God, no less. And so when you look and see what we can determine about who the beast is, of the first beast of Revelation, and then what they come with and all that comes with them in it. And so just in your own words, real briefly, what would you want to say to the people that are concerned about wanting to understand prophecy and what is to come?
Well, watch my video.
Yeah, right.
Shameless promotion right there. You know, I think that we need to stick with the Bible and not listen to what comes from behind the pulpits. I mean, we are in the last days. Jesus said there will be many false prophets. The way to destruction is broad, and that one day people are going to be saying, Lord, didn't we do all these great things in your name? These are Christians, self-professed Christians saying,
and what will he say?
In your name.
Right.
Going to say, depart from me, I never knew you.
Ooh. Say it again. Scariest words in existence, I feel like. Scariest words ever. What does he say?
He says, depart from me, I never knew you. Workers of lawlessness. You know, there's this can I honestly say I'm married to my wife? Well, I got the paperwork to prove it, but if you ask her, she's not going to say she's a husband.
Amen.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't think that she was wrong for moving on. We're supposed to be in a relationship. That's what salvation is all about. If you look at the parable about the 10 virgins, these are all virgins, so they're all representing the church or Christians. They all have oil, which represents the Holy Spirit, but there was 5 foolish virgins that fell asleep, and then they ran out of oil, and they were saying, hey, can we have some of your oil? And the wise virgin said, if we give you some of ours, we won't be able to make it. So this is a parable of saying that there will be Christians, Holy Spirit-filled Christians, who are going to fall asleep, and they're not going to make it because they fell asleep. They weren't woke.
Powerful. There you go. They weren't woke. Real talk. Man, that's deep. And so, man, that brings some confusion, and I can see the confusion in the majority of the community that are kind of bickering back and forth. Me and Pastor Nate talked about this briefly, but and it's funny, it's interesting because I asked him, without any preface, I asked him